Chapter 880. The old man nodded and turned to enter the room to report to the people inside. At the same time, the other people who had arrived earlier also noticed and reported to their masters. Hence, before the pill appraisal convention had even begun, there were already people knocking on the door to pay their respects. Unfortunately, Fengzhou did not even give them the chance to step into the room. She sat in the room and ate some tea and snacks. Then, she walked around the room and finally laid down on a soft couch. Through a small slit in the window, she looked down at the crowd below. When her gaze landed on the immortal-like figure who was walking up to the pill appraisal stage, Mo Chen seemed to sense it and looked over at her. However, when he saw the location of the room, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He had expected her to come, but he did not expect her to be the ghost doctor. However, when he thought about her medical skills, he understood. As the host announced the start of the pill appraisal convention, people began to present their pills for evaluation. Seeing that the pill appraisal convention had already begun, Leng Hua could not help but look at Fengzhou. "Master, I don't think we've presented our pills yet." "There's no hurry, let's wait and see. The main event is coming up." She curled her lips into a smile and calmly watched the pill appraisal convention. After about 2 hours, only one pill was left on the stage for evaluation. Hence, the host raised his voice and asked, "Is there anyone else whose pill is comparable to this level 4 vitality pill?" The hall was very quiet because everyone in the hall had already brought their pills up for evaluation. Only the last pill was of the highest grade and the best quality. "There is." The voice came from the heavenly room. When the owner of the level 4 vitality pill heard that voice, his heart could not help but skip a beat. Even though he knew that this pill appraisal convention would not be so simple, he could not help but look forward to it. After all, this was a chance to make a name for himself. As long as he showed his face here, he would be famous in all the countries. His status would also rise with the tide. Even some powerful cultivators would have to treat him with respect. However, he knew that in addition to the alchemists and forces of various countries, the ghost doctor, who had recently become famous everywhere, had also come. When it came to the ghost doctor, it really made people respect and hate him. They respected him for his superb medical skills, his talent, and his ability to refine medicine and pills. They hated him for stealing their limelight and cutting off their chance to stand out. The guard of the heavenly room came forward with a tray and placed the pills on the appraisal platform. "This is a level 4 spirit congealing pill." Then, he retreated to the side. The appraisers looked at them one by one. After comparing them, they whispered a few words. In the end, the level 4 vitality pill was defeated. Then, the people of the heavenly room took out their pills to compete. Some of them were defeated, and then they took out better ones. Another 2 hours passed in a row. The people of the 9 rooms heavenly room all took out their pills for appraisal and competition. Even the black market from a first-class country also took out their pills. But at this time, the heavenly room one was still quiet, without any movement. Could it be that the ghost doctor saw that the level of the pill was too high and retreated? For a moment, everyone had doubts in their hearts. Until, after several fierce competitions, the Shangguan family from a first-class country took the lead with a level 5 pill. Chapter 881. The first heaven room presents the 5 elemental pill for the competition. A middle-aged man who was hosting the competition raised his voice after reading the information in his hands. There was a faint trace of excitement in his voice, as if he was afraid that the people around him could not hear him clearly. His voice was laced with spiritual energy, so the moment he spoke, it was clearly heard by the thousands of people around him. 5 elemental pill? What kind of pill is that? I've never heard of it. What 5 elemental pill? Why didn't they report the pill's grade? I've been refining pills for so long, but I've never heard of any 5 elemental pill. First heaven room, wasn't it said to be the ghost doctor? Does that mean that the ghost doctor is really here? If it's the ghost doctor's pill, it probably won't be simple either. That's right, from his medicine to the beauty-nourishing pill, none of his pills are ordinary. Furthermore, it's said that his items all have a mark, so no one can fake them. I wonder what effects this 5-elemental pill has. I've never heard of this pill before. In an instant, there were endless discussions, all trying to guess what kind of pill the 5-elemental pill was. Trying to guess what kind of person the ghost doctor was. Some of them stared at the pill appraisal platform, while others stared at the first heaven room. The atmosphere had become even more expectant after the first heaven room presented the pill. Compared to the confusion of the others, the pill appraiser's expressions changed slightly, and a strange look flashed across their eyes. Especially the third elder of the Shengguan family, who was looking at the woman in black who presented the pill, he was even more astonished. Was it that red-robed youth? That youth called Fengjiu? He was the ghost doctor. Leng Shuang placed the pill on the pill appraisal platform and said, "This is the 5-elemental pill, a pill that can allow an ordinary person without spiritual roots to develop spiritual roots after eating it." After saying that, she retreated to the side. However, when she said that a person without spiritual roots could develop spiritual roots after eating it, the entire pill appraisal hall went into an uproar. Did I hear wrongly? A person without spiritual roots can develop spiritual roots after eating it? Is this true? Isn't this too heaven-defying? I've never heard of a person without spiritual roots having the chance to cultivate. If what she said is true, then the value of this pill is really incredible. That's right. This is a medicinal pill that can change a person's life. It's too heaven-defying. Everyone was talking at once. The whole scene was as lively as a market. What demeanor! What calmness! All of that was thrown to the back of their minds. Even the people in the heavenly room were the same. After hearing those words, they were shocked and stood up one after another. There was actually such a heaven-defying pill in this world. While the crowd was engaged in a heated discussion, the appraisers at the pill appraisal table weren't idling around either. After examining the pill, they passed it to another. They used a pair of tweezers to hold the pill in their hands, examining it from its color to its smell to its veins. "Young Master Mo Chen, what do you think?" The third elder of the Shengguan clan looked at the white-robed Mo Chen beside him and asked gently. When the others heard this, their gazes also fell on the two of them. "I've heard of the 5 elements pill before. It's an ancient pill recipe, but it's been lost for many years. I just didn't expect to see a 5 elements pill again today." Chapter 882. His meaning was clear. In other words, this 5-elemental pill belonged to Dan Wang, the champion of today's competition. The other appraisers nodded at his words, indicating that they had no objections because that was indeed the case. They were more experienced than everyone else here, so they had heard of this 5-elemental pill before. What was different was that they had only heard of it in the past, but today, they witnessed it with their own eyes. No matter how they looked at it, this 5-elemental pill was the best out of all the other pills here today. Naturally, it was widely expected to win the competition. And so, this pill appraisal convention that lasted for several hours came to an end after Fengjiu presented his 5-elemental pill. Without a doubt, she took first place. When Leng Shuang returned with the pill and the prizes, he was followed by a few people. The appraisers, including Mo Chen, followed him to the door. After Leng Shuang entered, they waited outside the door. Inside the room, Fengjiu put away the pill and looked at the prizes. Apart from 3 extremely rare spirit egg fruits, there were also 2 bags of precious spirit herb seeds, several priceless herbs, and a 500-year-old ginseng. There are quite a lot of prizes. Some of these things can't be bought outside even if you have the money. She looked at the prizes before finally putting them away. "Master, the appraisers are waiting outside. They would like to see you," Leng Shuang said, looking at her joyful face. Feng Jiu took a sip of tea, then said, "Let them in." "Yes." Leng Shuang walked to the door and opened it. However, when the door opened, there were obviously more people inside. Seeing this, she turned to the appraisers and said, "My master invites you in." The appraisers couldn't help but smile at this. Meanwhile, the others behind them had different expressions on their faces. Someone asked, "Miss, please help us inform our master that we would also like to pay the ghost doctor a visit." "My apologies, my master is very busy." Having said that, he invited the appraisers into his room and closed the door behind him, completely ignoring their stiff expressions. Out of the 4 appraisers, Feng Jiu recognized 2 of them. When the Shengguan family's 3rd elder saw that it was indeed Feng Jiu in the room, the smile on his face deepened. He stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting, "Young Master Feng, we meet again. Please take a seat." Feng Jiu nodded and invited them to sit. Mo Chen sat beside her. When he saw her half-smiling gaze fall on him, he calmly shifted his gaze away. The other 2 appraisers were also from a Tier 1 country. After meeting Feng Jiu, they introduced themselves and asked if Feng Jiu was interested in developing in their countries. Feng Jiu chatted with them for about an hour before she said to them, "The pill appraisal convention has ended and I should be leaving in the next 2 days. If fate allows it in the future, I'll treat all of you to a drink." Hearing this, the appraisers understood what she meant. They stood up and bid her farewell. When they stepped out, they saw that the others were still surrounding them, so they left on their own accord. Inside the room, Feng Jiu looked at Mo Chen who was sitting there motionlessly and asked, "You're not leaving? It's not the first time we've met. Why are you being so distant?" Mo Chen replied gently. His gaze fell on her face as he asked, "When are you going back?" "I'll go with you." Chapter 883. "From what you're saying, it sounds like you don't want me to go to the academy." His voice was calm and his tone was gentle but cold. "Hee, how could that be? Whether you go or not, it doesn't really matter to me." She stood up as she spoke and dusted off her robes. She looked at him and said, "I'm currently staying at an inn in the west of the city. Now that the pill appraisal convention has ended, I said that I'd be leaving in 2 days but I plan to leave now. Do you really want to come along? Then hurry back and pack your things. I'm wearing light clothes." He stood up as well. "However, I don't think we can leave now. Other than the imperial family of country, there are also people from a Tier 1 country waiting outside. That's easy. We'll leave through the window." She gestured to the window on the side. The window at the back faces the back of the pill appraisal hall. There's no one there. As she spoke, she led Leng Hua and Leng Shuang to the window and left through the back. Seeing this, Mo Chen's lips curled up imperceptibly. He found it amusing and left through the window with her. Outside the room, the people waiting outside waited for a long time but no one came out. Thinking that young Master Mo Chen had not come out after entering the room, they asked, "They're still inside, right? They shouldn't have left, right? This room doesn't have a back door. They should still be inside, right? It's true that this room doesn't have a back door but there's a back window. They couldn't have left through the window to avoid us, right?" This person's words stunned everyone. They found it unbelievable. Wasn't leaving through the window a little too degrading? However, it was said that the ghost doctor had a strange personality. She might do things that they wouldn't. Hence, when there was no response after knocking on the door, someone pushed the door open and entered. The room was empty and there wasn't even a shadow in sight. However, the window at the back was open. Did they really leave through the window? Everyone was stunned and in disbelief. Without giving anyone time to react, Feng Jiu and the others returned to the inn and brought Tun Yin along. They left the imperial city and headed back, but when everyone heard the news and rushed to the inn, they were still a step too late. They still didn't see her. On the mountain path, they rested on the grass after walking for a while. Fengjiu sat cross-legged and looked at Mo Chen who was sitting beside her. She smiled and asked, "If you leave with me, will they say that you're with me? That you're colluding with each other to take the prize?" Hearing this, Mo Chen looked at her and instead of answering, she asked, "Were you really the one who refined the 5-elemental pill?" "Of course I refined it. Where else would I have gotten it? If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to do it. But she could always make the impossible possible. Master, have some pastries to fill your stomach." Lang Hua took out a box of pastries and placed it in front of the two. He smiled at Mo Chen and said, "Master, have some too. You won't be hungry on the way. When did you buy these? How come I didn't know?" Fengjiu's eyes lit up. She took a piece and ate it while saying to Mo Chen, "Don't be shy. Help yourself." Chapter 884. Lang Hua, no wonder my father told me to bring you wherever I go. I really don't have to worry about what you do. Cultivate well, and when I go to the Empire in the future, I'll bring you and your sister along. You'll be my housekeeper then. She smiled and narrowed her eyes. Hearing this, Lang Hua was delighted. He immediately replied, "Don't worry, master. I'll definitely cultivate well." Mo Chen ate the pastries elegantly. It was as if he wasn't in the wilderness, but in a luxurious hall. He sat upright and slowly tasted the pastries. When he heard their conversation, he didn't even raise his eyes as he said, "Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire. Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire." Fengjiu's eyes flickered. She heard these words again. Originally, these words were said by Xianyuan Mo's. He told her not to go to the Empire before she reached the nascent soul stage. And now, Mo Chen actually said the same thing. Could it be that the people in the Empire were really that strong? That terrifying? Could it be that the people there are all above the nascent soul stage? She couldn't help but ask. In that place, even the waiters at the inns are great spiritual masters. Golden core cultivators can be seen everywhere. Moreover, if you don't agree with them, the most direct way to deal with them is to fight. After eating 2 pastries, he wiped the corners of his mouth and continued, "Without the cultivation of the nascent soul stage and without the protection of a powerful force, you'll have to tuck your tail between your legs." Fengjiu was silent. She was now at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She had set a goal for herself, which was to reach the golden core stage within a year. However, when she returned to the academy, she still had to participate in the ranking competition. She reckoned that she wouldn't have enough time. As for reaching the nascent soul stage, she didn't need to think about it for the next 2 years. She and Xianyuan Mo's had agreed on a 10-year time limit. However, she only planned to reach the nascent soul stage within 5 years. Now, more than a year had passed. Perhaps because the topic was too heavy, the two sat down and didn't talk about it again. After resting for a while, Fengjiu looked at the sky and directly took out the flying ship. She said to the 3 of them, "Let's get on the ship. The speed will be faster, and you can also rest on the boat." Mo Chen glanced at the luxurious spaceship and then glanced at her. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Why didn't you take it out earlier?" Fengjiu was speechless. Sitting on the flying ship, he burned his spirit stones and headed towards Qingtang Kingdom. On the other side, after third elder of Shangguan clan in the imperial city of Yi City learned that Fengjiu and the others had left, he also left with his subordinates. He planned to send someone to investigate Fengjiu's identity after returning to the clan. He wanted to know, other than his identity as the ghost doctor, was there any other relationship with the Feng family? After about half a month's time, Fengjiu and the rest returned to Qingtang Kingdom. After arriving at Qingtang Kingdom, she kept the flying ship and said to Mo Chen, "We've arrived at the border here. I still have things to do, so I won't be returning to the academy with you." Mo Chen glanced at her and nodded. She didn't even say a word before leaving on her sword. After she left, Feng Zhou brought Leng Shuang and the rest to the manor, planning to pick up Lao Bai and return to the academy. As soon as they arrived at the manor, they were greeted by 8 phoenix guards. "Master, you're finally back." Chapter 885. The assessment is finally out. I heard my father mention it when I went back for the new year. However, the 7th class is only temporary. I believe that it won't be long before the country's strength can be improved again. She smiled and her words were full of confidence. That's for sure. The 8 of them smiled and replied. Feng Zhou glanced around but did not see Xiang Hua and Bai Xiao. He asked, "Where are the 2 of them?" "Bai Xiao and Du Fan are at the back of the mountain. Xiang Hua went out on a mission 2 days ago and hasn't returned yet. However, he should be back today." As Luo Yu spoke, he told her about the missions they had received these days and the improvement of their strength. "Master, we have all entered the martial arts grandmaster level. Since we took on a mission, there is nothing we can't complete." Hearing this, Feng Zhou chuckled. "Don't be too proud. This is only the Qingtang kingdom. The strength of a martial arts grandmaster is not strong. You have to be careful when you are outside. Alright, I will go and rest first. I will return to the academy tomorrow morning. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua will stay here. Look for me if you need anything." "Yes." Everyone replied. After watching her leave, they surrounded Leng Shuang and Leng Hua and asked them questions. Especially after they found out that Leng Hua had a water spirit root, they were very curious. However, in the evening, before the sky was completely dark, Du Fan, Luo Yu, and the others' expressions changed drastically. They hurried to the courtyard where she lived. "Master, something happened." In the room, Feng Zhou had just woken up for a while. After hearing the anxious voices outside, she opened the door and walked out. Seeing the sorrowful and angry expressions on their faces, her heart couldn't help but sink. Just as she was about to speak, she noticed that some of them didn't look right. "Master, Xiang Hua, he is dead." As Luo Yu spoke, he lowered his head in grief. Although they had not known Xiang Hua for long, they worked together and went on missions together. However, who knew that he would mysteriously die after taking on a mission? Feng Zhou, who was about to ask where they had been, heard this. Feng Zhou's heart sank. "Dead? How did he die? How did you know? Where did you get the news?" As a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage, how could he die so easily? She had never thought that they would suddenly tell her that Xiang Hua was dead. Du Fan took a deep breath and said in a pained voice, "Someone activated the array and hung his body outside our manor. Let's go out and check." When they went outside, they didn't see anyone else. They only saw Xiang Hua's body hanging on a tree not far away. When they saw his body, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that Xiang Hua, who had been drinking and laughing with them 2 days ago, had died just like that. "Where's the corpse?" Her face was dark, and her eyes were cold. "It's in the front yard." Everyone said and led her to the front yard. When they came to the front yard, Feng Zhou did not touch Xiang Hua's body. Instead, she stood a step away and looked at him. Seeing that the person lying on the ground had no breath and his body was stiff, her hands were tightly clenched into fists, and her heart was full of killing intent. She raised her eyes and glanced at them. "Du Fan, Luo Yu, Fan Lin, Many, and Fang Cheng, did you all touch Xiang Hua's body?" Chapter 886. His body was sprinkled with a colorless and odorless poison. "You guys should have touched him, right?" She stared at them and saw their faces change. "Yes, we all moved the body in to check, but I didn't find any poison," Fan Lin said with a serious expression. Because he was the one who knew medicine, when he saw Xiang Hua's body, the others helped to lift it up while he was responsible for checking, but he didn't expect. Feng Jiu glanced at them. First, she took Fan Lin's pulse to check what kind of poison he was poisoned with. However, this check made her heart sink, because it was not an ordinary poison. This poison was not only colorless and odorless, but it was also slow to take effect. Before it took effect, it was impossible to detect. If she didn't see a dark red color under their eyes, she really wouldn't have known that they were poisoned. Taking back her hand, she didn't speak, but took out a thin glove and a mask from her space. She couldn't detect it on their bodies, but it could be detected on Xianghua's body. She used a tool to collect some fine powder from his fingernails and collar, and asked without raising her head, "Fan Lin, what are the results of your examination?" "Master, he suffered hundreds of wounds all over his body, but they were not fatal. The tendons in his 2 legs were broken, his hands were directly twisted, and his body was burned in many places." Fan Lin said, and with every word, the anger in his heart deepened. He was a doctor, and from the wounds on his body, he naturally knew how much torture he had suffered before his death. And these were not the reasons for his death. The reason for his death was the explosion of his golden elixir, and all the tendons in his body were broken. Du Fan examined him and said that he might have been searched by a secret method when he was alive. Perhaps it was because of this that he finally detonated his golden elixir to commit suicide. Feng Jiu listened while examining. Just as Fan Lin said, he was tortured before his death, and his divine sense was seriously damaged. There were signs of his soul being searched. After a long time, she stood up and looked at Xianghua's body, killing intent and anger in her heart. She turned and looked at them, saying, "Luo Yu, many, you move his body to the back of the mountain and burn it. Bury him there. Du Fan, you find the information of the mission Xianghua took and give it to me. Fan Lin, you come with me to make the medicine. The others pay attention to the movements in the manor." The several people separated to do their work. Feng Jiu took Fan Lin to the pharmacy, intending to detoxify them first. "Tell me what's wrong with your body, and let me check it," she said while preparing the matter at hand. "Yes." Fan Lin responded, and did as she said. He helped her to make the antidote, and at the same time, to stimulate the poison in his body as soon as possible. After about an hour, the antidote still had not been made, and he could no longer hold on. "Master, it seems that the poison has taken effect. I can't see anything in front of me. I can't breathe, my whole body." Before he finished speaking, he had already collapsed. Seeing this, Feng Jiu caught him and put him on the ground. She quickly used needles to seal several major acupoints in his body, and checked him again. After finding the symptoms, she picked the medicine and made it. Chapter 887. After taking the antidote and pricking his acupoints with golden needles, the purple color on Fan Lin's face gradually faded after a few breaths. At this moment, Du Fan's voice came from outside. "Master, I've brought all the information. Come in." Feng Jiu put away the golden needles and looked at Du Fan. Seeing that the poison hadn't acted up yet, he handed him the antidote. "This is the antidote. Don't run your qi for an hour after taking it." "Yes." He took the antidote and handed over the information. "Take the antidote here to Luo Yu and the others." She took the information and went outside to read it. She saw that there was only a simple task on the information, but this task didn't seem to have any problems and wasn't dangerous. The problem was that this task was to guide people, and Xianghua was assigned to do this task. Why did he guide him to do this task? The task was fake, and the real purpose was to lure him to death, right? Then why did he lure Xianghua to death? Why did he have to search his soul? Who was he? If he could capture a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm alive and search his soul, this person must have the cultivation of the nascent soul realm. Oh no, oh no. Bai Shao hurriedly ran in from outside. His expression changed slightly, and his face was full of panic. When he saw Fengjiu, who was guarding the manor, he hurriedly said, "Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain. Yes, many of them are men in black. A ground-drilling mouse I tamed some time ago told me that they sneaked in and hid in the forest. Our manor is guarded by Leng Shuang and the others. Those people haven't come yet, but we don't know what they want to do. What should we do? What should we do now? He was a little worried. There were only a few of them in the manor, and a few of them were poisoned. Xiang Hua was dead, but before they could find out who did it, someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain. What did they want to do? It was obvious that they were coming for them. Just as he was speaking, a small grayish-white mouse with a fist in its fist came out of his arms, squeaking as it scurried around his body. Fengjiu glanced at the little mouse, closed the information in his hand, and said, "Don't you know how to tame beasts? I'll leave the back of the mountain to you. Watch it for me." He stared blankly for a moment. Seeing her cold face and cold killing intent, he immediately replied, "Yes." He knew how to tame beasts, he wasn't a useless person. There were at least hundreds of ferocious beasts and spirit beasts in the back of the mountain. Even if his combat ability wasn't good, his tame, calm. 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 Fengjiu turned around and said a few words to Du Fan, asking him to take care of the people who had not fully recovered from the poison, and went to the front. When she came to the front, she saw Leng Shuang and Leng Hua patrolling around the manor. When they saw her come out, they walked over. "Master." The two of them called out. Just as they were about to speak, Fengjiu called them in. "Is there any movement in front?" Fengjiu asked. "I didn't see anyone, but it seems like someone activated the array. I went out to take a look. The atmosphere outside the manor is not right. It's like a lot of people have surrounded us and are staring at us." Chapter 888. Yes. The two of them replied and looked at each other. "You guys guard the manor. I'll go outside and take a look." As she spoke, she walked out of the formation and arrived outside. As she watched the leaves around her move without any wind, her lips curled into a cold, bloodthirsty smile. "What's the point of hiding? Why? You don't dare to show your face. Huh, you're Xiang Hua's new master. Chu Baishan's successor." A sinister voice sounded. Then, a man wearing a black cloak with a long scar on his face walked out. As the man walked out, the men in black who were hidden in the surrounding trees also walked out and followed behind him. They no longer hid their aura, and evil aura spread out. The bloodthirsty and evil aura and the blood aura of these people made Fengjiu realize at a glance that these people were evil cultivators. And they were evil cultivators with decent strength. Other than the leader who was a nascent soul cultivator, the dozens of people behind him were all golden core cultivators. The people surrounding the manor's array entrance were all foundation establishment cultivators. They were not from the Qingtang Kingdom. To be exact, the Qingtang Kingdom did not have evil cultivators with such strength. These people were at least from a third-class country. "You killed my people?" She was surprised that she could still use such a calm and gentle tone to ask. "You mean that Xiang Hua?" "Ha!" The leader of the nascent soul cultivators laughed and stared at Fengjiu. "I asked him to submit to me but he refused. So I asked my people to teach him a lesson. But it was too boring. So I personally searched his soul. He was also stupid. He actually detonated himself. Huh, really stupid. I wanted to throw his body to the wild beasts to gnaw on. But I thought of some useful information from the soul search and wanted to give you a gift. How about it? Are you satisfied with my gift?" The man stared at Fengjiu and his voice was cold with a trace of madness. "Fengjiu, right? Hand over the ancient divine sword, Azure Tip, and perhaps I'll leave all of your corpses intact. Otherwise, Hearing his words, Fengjiu's eyes flickered and he laughed coldly. So you're saying that you're here for the azure-edged sword? I'm curious, how did you find us? But I'm not the only one targeting you. The corrupt paths people are all targeting your Qingfeng sword. Brat, if you don't have the strength to take it, then you're courting death. That person's black figure instantly shot out, clawing at Fengjiu. Fengjiu narrowed her eyes slightly as she stared at the incoming claw. The air around her body surged. She stood there without moving, but her killing intent and intimidating aura instantly shot out. With a move of her hand, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. A sharp green light shot out, giving off a cold and frightening aura. With a wave of her hand holding the sword, the Qingfeng sword, which was different from ordinary swords, struck out like a large blade, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. Swish! 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 The frightening gust of wind swept out in an instant. For a moment, some of the black-clothed men who couldn't dodge in time were cut in half. Some of the more agile ones fell to the ground and narrowly avoided the attack. However, when the black-clothed men who narrowly avoided the attack stood up, they were so shocked that they broke out in cold sweat. They stared at the Qingfeng sword in disbelief. Chapter 889. The evil cultivator in black who had dodged stared at the Qingfeng sword in Fengjiu's hand with a dark expression. His eyes were filled with intense greed and excitement. This is the power of the Qingfeng sword. It's really not bad at all. As expected of an ancient divine sword. He stared at Fengjiu's sword and laughed sinisterly. As his laughter spread out, the airflow in the air fluctuated due to his pressure, becoming heavy and difficult to breathe. His laughter was especially eerie in the night. Fengjiu did not stare at anyone else. Her gaze was only fixed on the evil cultivator in the lead. Since he was the one who killed Xianghua, then she would make him pay with his blood. The red figure surged with spiritual power in the night. The dazzling flame-like airflow wrapped around her, making her look extremely dazzling. Even in the night, one could see her at a glance. She held the Qingfeng sword and pointed it diagonally to the ground. Her gaze slowly narrowed, and her cold and eerie voice carried a gloomy and intense bloodthirst as it spread out in the night. You have to pay the price for killing my people. As soon as her voice fell, the red figure swept out like a ghost. If it were not for the fiery airflow surging around her body, no one would be able to catch her movements. In that instant, everyone felt an earth-shattering murderous aura burst out from the red-clothed youth. The murderous aura was like a torrential river that was about to engulf them. What shocked them the most was that within the murderous aura, there was an ancient pressure that made their hearts tremble. I'll let you have a taste of death by 1,000 cuts. An icy voice rang out from Fengjiu's mouth, accompanied by the destructive sword aura from the azure-edged sword. With a whoosh, the air seemed to have been sliced in half by the ancient divine sword. The azure light drew an arc from the bottom and slashed towards the nascent soul cultivator at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to react to. The nascent soul stage evil cultivator was also shocked by Fengjiu's pressure and murderous aura. A light flashed through his eyes, and because he could not dodge in time, he could only roll on the ground. However, he was still affected by the terrifying sword aura, and countless wounds of different sizes instantly appeared on his body. Smelling the faint smell of blood in the air and feeling the slight pain in his body, he laughed cruelly. He stared at Fengjiu and laughed. Ha 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 ha! That eerie laughter eventually turned into loud laughter. The powerful nascent soul pressure spread out from the laughter, causing the people behind him to cover their ears and cry out in pain as they quickly retreated. The aura of an ancient divine beast. Ha 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 ha. It's actually the aura of an ancient divine beast. He opened his hands wide and laughed towards the sky. When his laughter stopped, he suddenly looked at Fengjiu with a strange light of excitement in his eyes. Not only do you have the Qingfeng sword, you also have an ancient divine beast. That means, as long as I kill you and crush your soul, everything will be mine. Everything will be mine, ha 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 ha. That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Chapter 890. Brat, you want to kill me? You're not qualified. Fengjiu smirked as she saw the evil cultivator charging towards her. Then I'll show you whether I'm qualified or not. As soon as she finished speaking, she no longer concealed her cultivation and aura. In an instant, the aura of the peak of the foundation establishment stage spread out from her body. A powerful ancient pressure also surged out like a flood under her release, turning into a ferocious beast that pounced towards the nascent soul stage evil cultivator. Hiss. This is that he sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with disbelief. As a nascent soul cultivator, he could sense the ancient aura from the young man's aura. Naturally, he could also sense that the aura of a peak foundation establishment cultivator emanating from the young man's body contained a terrifying aura. That was the aura of the heavenly Tao. Could it be that he's actually a heavenly Tao foundation establishment cultivator? The powerful aura from the ancient aura enveloped his entire body. He could only feel the aura of death enveloping his head. His body stiffened for a moment, but at that moment, a green light flashed before his eyes and a sharp pain shot through his spine. Hiss. The moment the green sword swung down, a bloody arm flew out. It spun a few times in the air before landing 10 meters away. A shrill scream pierced through the air and traveled into everyone's ears. Hiss. How is this possible? The Jindan stage evil cultivators and Foundation establishment stage evil cultivators who were 10 meters away were all shocked by this scene. They all widened their eyes in disbelief as they watched the severed arm fly through the air and smash into the ground that was covered with fine sand and stones. The evil cultivator clutched his severed arm and retreated step by step. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. He didn't expect Fengjiu to be so fast, nor did he expect that a nascent soul cultivator like him would have his arm chopped off by a foundation establishment cultivator. The sharp pain from his body and the warm blood on his hand that was clutching his severed arm clearly told him that this wasn't fake. This was real. His hand had really been chopped off by this youth. Fengjiu stood against the wind with her sword in hand. In the night, her red robes fluttered and a bloodthirsty aura spread from between her brows. She stared at the nascent soul evil cultivator in front of her and raised the Qingfeng sword in her hand, gesturing at him. You know what? If I had moved my sword just a little bit, I wouldn't have just cut off your arm. Her lips curled into a mocking sneer, knowing that I have an ancient divine beast and the azure-edged sword, you still dare to provoke me? Ha! You're courting death. All of you, attack. Kill him. That nascent soul cultivator retreated step by step, but ordered the heretic cultivators behind him to step forward. However, these people were heretic cultivators. After seeing that even a nascent soul cultivator's arm had been chopped off, who would dare to step forward to die? When the nascent soul stage cultivator saw that no one came forward, he angrily turned around and glared at the people who had retreated 10 meters away. Go! What are you all standing there for? Kill him! However, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a chill behind his back. A murderous aura attacked him. He immediately turned around and saw the red-robed youth closing in on him with the azure-edged sword in hand. The murderous aura was so fierce that he didn't want to retreat. He gritted his teeth and gathered a sharp chi in his uninjured hand to attack the youth. He turned around and planned to escape first. If he could save his life, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to take his life in the future. You want to leave? Since you're here, don't even think about leaving alive. Chapter 891. The evil cultivators saw that when the nascent soul evil cultivator turned around to escape, the red figure behind him chased after him like a malicious spirit that had crawled out of hell. The person in front fled, and he chased after him. Rumbling sounds could be heard from time to time as the two of them fought. The surrounding trees were shaken and cut down as they fought. Gravel flew everywhere, and the airflow was like a knife. They were so frightened that they did not dare to go forward. Was that red-robed young man really just a Foundation establishment cultivator? How could a Foundation establishment cultivator be a match for a nascent soul cultivator? And he actually beat a nascent soul cultivator into such a sorry state. At this moment, they could not help but want to retreat and escape. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that even the nascent soul cultivator was no match for him, let alone them. "Let's go!" someone shouted. Seeing that the situation was not good, they planned to escape. However, when they activated their spiritual aura and prepared to leave on their swords, they found that their aura was in a mess and could not be condensed. Oh no! There's poison in the air. One of the Golden Core evil cultivators was proficient in poisons and could be said to be the first to discover the problem. He found that the poison was colorless and odorless. It did not take effect immediately, but it corroded their bodies from the inside, making them unable to condense their spiritual power to escape and unable to fight. This is somewhat similar to my soul-seizing poison. The Golden Core evil cultivator's face changed drastically, and the blood drained from his face. He, who was familiar with poisons, analyzed the symptoms of his body. This poison was somewhat similar to his poison, but it had been modified. However, a person who had been poisoned would not notice it in a short period of time. However, if he tried to condense his spiritual power, he would not be able to condense it. Forcefully condensing it would only speed up the poison's flow in his blood. He suddenly retreated and looked at the young man who was fighting with the nascent soul cultivator in horror. It's him. He was the one who sprinkled the poison in the air when they were unknowingly and defenseless. He trembled as he took out the antidote pill and wanted to take it. No matter what poison it was, he would take the antidote pill first. However, when they saw him take out the antidote pill and was about to take it, the eyes of the Golden Core evil cultivators beside him turned red. They went forward to snatch it. "Give me the antidote pill. Give it to me. Give it to me." None of them dared to use their spiritual power and aura. They actually forcefully fought over the treasures. They were like shrews and did not look like cultivators at all. However, these people were evil cultivators and did not care about how others looked at them. Most evil cultivators were selfish and only cared about themselves. Why would they care about the lives of others? Just then, a strange melody came from the night. The sound was thin, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, coming from afar. Just as they were wondering which reckless person was playing music in this place in the middle of the night, they heard a chaotic roar. Roar! 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 The roars of the ferocious beasts were exceptionally clear in the darkness of the night. The heavy and disorderly footsteps were like muffled thunder, causing the ground to shake. When those people saw the ferocious beasts that they normally wouldn't even frown in the slightest, their faces turned deathly pale and filled with terror. It's a vicious beast. Damn it! Why are there so many vicious beasts? Hundreds of vicious beasts rushed out. Some quickly surrounded them, and some pounced on them to bite them. For a moment, they cried out in alarm and tried to escape. However, they found that the path was blocked by hundreds of vicious beasts and spiritual beasts. Chapter 892. Behind him, Leng Shuang and the others also walked out. There were traces of battle on their bodies. Obviously, they had fought with the person who had sneaked into the back of the mountain. "Master, the people in the back of the mountain have been dealt with." Bai Xiao shouted. Seeing that the nascent soul cultivator was being defeated by her, she picked up the musical instrument in her hand and put it to her mouth. As the sound of the musical instrument rang out, the ferocious beasts pounced on the cultivators crazily and bit them. They didn't need to do anything. The evil cultivators who couldn't use their spiritual power to fight were all torn to pieces by the ferocious beasts' claws. Shrill screams and the strong smell of blood filled the air. In less than half an hour, the ground was covered in blood and flesh. None of the evil cultivators survived. Bai Xiao and the others looked in the direction of the scream. They saw that one of the nascent soul cultivator's legs had been chopped off by the Qingfeng sword. He flew out and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Feng Jiu walked closer and looked at the evil cultivator who was struggling and wailing on the ground. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. Have you thought about how you want to die? The evil cultivator had one of his arms and one of his legs chopped off. He couldn't dodge or escape. He could only sit there and stare at Feng Jiu, who was full of murderous intent. Who are you? How can a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator injure me to this extent? Who are you? Ha, how dare you provoke me when you don't even know who I am? She sneered and pointed the sharp sword in her hand at his dantian. Don't even think about trying to escape with your nascent soul. Not many people I want to kill can escape. The nascent soul cultivator's face was ghastly pale. Cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. He stared at Feng Jiu in front of him and smiled sinisterly. He gritted his teeth and wanted to explode and kill himself. Unexpectedly, Feng Jiu, who had already seen through his intentions, shot out a few silver needles. The evil cultivator fell to the ground, as if he had lost consciousness. Take him back. Don't let him die so easily, she said coldly. She glanced at the dead evil sorcerers around her and said to the few of them, clean this up. Then, she walked into the manor. Even after killing those people, she still couldn't let it go. After killing those people, Xiang Hua would not come back to life. He hadn't been by her side for a long time, but his oath seemed to still echo in her mind. However, such a person was now dead. She knew that this was only the beginning and not the end. As long as she walked down this path, the people around her could face all of this. They could be implicated by her and die because of her. Everyone watched as she walked into the manor with the Qingfeng sword in hand. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts, but they didn't know what to say. They could only listen to her and deal with this place first. Xiang Hua's death was a blow to them, but also a warning. It let them know that if someone really wanted to kill them and set them up, with their current strength, they really could only be trampled on. Those who are seriously injured go back and bandage them. Those who are lightly injured, follow me to clean up the scene. Du Fan said and led a few people who were lightly injured to deal with the corpses outside. Chapter 893. It was destined to be a sleepless night. It was already midnight by the time they cleaned up the area outside. After returning to the courtyard, Feng Jiu calmed down for a while and went to the dungeon. She looked at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator in the dungeon. Drag him out. She gestured. Du Fan and Leng Shuang, who were behind her, stepped forward and dragged him out. Looking at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator, she narrowed her eyes and walked up to him. She reached out her hand and touched the top of his head. Soul searching was a technique that was not accepted and very few people would use. The person who had his soul searched would become a useless person. His spirit would be damaged and he could only be an idiot. Therefore, very few people would use soul searching. However, people still used this technique on evil cultivators and those who had secrets. She closed her eyes and used her hand to search his head with her divine sense. The information in his mind flashed through her mind without any concealment. The words he had said, the things he had done, the things she knew, and the things she did not know, were all entered into her divine sense. After a long time, she opened her eyes and withdrew her hand. She turned and walked out, leaving a sentence, "Take him to the ferocious beasts as a snack." Leng Shuang followed behind her and left. Du Fan responded and dragged the unconscious man to the back of the mountain. They gathered in the hall late that night. Feng Jiu told them some things and asked them to be careful when they went out for missions in the future. She also told them that the evil cultivator knew that she had obtained the Qin Feng sword through soul-searching. He probably wanted to keep it for himself. The news had not spread yet, so they just needed to pay more attention to the movements of other parties. Finally, she said to Luo Yu, "Go to the Cool Breeze gang after daybreak and tell Ren Xiang that there is a force secretly plotting to take over the power of Yan Dian. Ask him to be careful and ask him if he has safely sent the son of Yan Dian to the people who will receive him." "Yes, master. Don't worry. I will leave at daybreak," Luo Yu replied. Fengjiu nodded, then got up and returned to her room. After she left, the others were still sitting in the hall, discussing matters. It wasn't until the evening of the next day that Luo Yu returned and inquired, "Is master still in the courtyard? Or did he return to the academy?" "He's still in the courtyard, but he hasn't come out since last night." Fan Lin sighed softly and asked, "How is the matter that master asked you to do coming along?" "Yes, I've passed on the message and asked master what he wanted to know. I was just about to report back to master. He said, I'll go to master's courtyard to take a look." "I'll go too." Fan Lin immediately followed. When they arrived at the courtyard, both Leng Hua and Leng Shuang were there. They asked, "Where's master?" "Still not out yet." "You're looking for her." "I'll go and report." Leng Hua said, then knocked on the door and called, "Master, Brother Luo is back." There was no movement in the room. After a while, the door opened and Fengjiu, dressed in red, walked out. She glanced at the people in the courtyard, then her gaze fell on Luo Yu. Seeing this, Luo Yu hurriedly reported, "Master, I've passed on the message. Ren Xiang said that he has safely sent the son of Yan Dian to the people who will receive him, so you don't have to worry." Chapter 894. Seeing that she was about to leave, everyone escorted her out of the manor. They watched as she rode on Lao Bai's back and left with Tun Yun. They stood there for a long time before returning to the manor. Although they were master and servant, their master treated them like family. They all knew that their master was very sad to see Xiang Hua killed. After all, everyone who followed her was carefully selected by her. Now, they were all gone. Thinking of this, everyone secretly made up their minds. They had to work hard and cultivate. They had to become stronger as soon as possible. The next morning, Fengjiu returned to the academy after a trip to the black market. She walked through the academy's main gate and went straight to her cave residence. The academy had started school at the beginning of February and the students had all returned. However, it was still early and there were not many students walking around in the academy. After returning to the academy and reporting, she did not go out again. Every day, if she was not cultivating in her cave residence, she was refining pills and making medicine. Half a month had passed. One day, the dean sent someone to summon her. "Dean, Vice Dean." When she arrived at the main peak, she bowed to the two of them. She swept her gaze around and saw that Mo Chen was also by the side, but she nodded slightly. When she saw Mo Chen return a faint smile, she looked away. "I heard that you came back a while ago, but I haven't seen you around the academy. I called you here today to tell you that in 3 days, the 10 students you've selected will be following the vice headmaster and several mentors to participate in the ranking competition between the academies. Are you ready?" "Who are the other 9 people?" she asked. The dean smiled and said, 2 of the top 10 geniuses of the academy have been squeezed out by you and Xiao Han. The others have not changed. We originally planned to let your brother participate, but he hasn't returned yet. He only sent a message saying that he went to another country with the mercenaries from the black market. He probably won't be back in a short time, so he didn't get a spot." Hearing this, her eyes flickered. Her brother hasn't returned yet? In the past half a month, she had not paid attention to this. She had only focused on cultivating and refining pills. She was not in the mood to care about anything else. I'm fine. We're leaving in 3 days, right? I understand. She nodded and said. Then go back and prepare. We'll meet at the plaza in 3 days. Okay, then I'll go back first. She replied and turned to leave. Returning to the cave residence, she saw White and Tun Yun lying outside the cave residence. She walked over and said, I'm going to participate in the school tournament in 3 days. Do you two want to stay here or go into the space? I want to follow Master. I can enter the space, but I don't want to stay here. Old White said anxiously. I want to follow Master as well, Tun Yun said. Only the big black bear at the side didn't know what they were talking about. It tilted its head and looked at them in a daze. Old White's body is too big. He can't come out after entering the space. As for Tun Yun, he doesn't need to enter the space. He can just stay by my side. She looked at the two beasts and then looked at the big black bear. She patted its head and said, Little Black, do you want to go back to the forest? Roar. It let out a low roar and hugged the tree beside it, indicating that it did not want to go back. Chapter 895. A Woo. She didn't know whether the big black bear understood or not, but it howled and came to her side to rub against her, showing a close attitude. Looking at it stretching out its clumsy bear claws and waving them in front of her, Fengjiu couldn't help but be amused, revealing her first smile in nearly half a month. Well, that's it. I'll go back and refine some things, just in case. She patted the heads of the 3 beasts around her and was about to return to the cave when she heard Yi Jing's voice. Fengjiu. She turned around and looked at the person, Yi Jing. Why are you here? Yi Jing came to her side and said, I know you've been back for half a month, but you've been cultivating in the cave and haven't come out, so I didn't come to disturb you. I just heard that the dean was looking for you, so I wanted to come and have a look. I know that you're also among the 10 places this time. You're going back so far and will be gone for so long, fortunately, you're going with me. Well, since I came back, I've been in the cave and didn't go out. I just found out that we'll be leaving in 3 days. She pulled her to sit down at the table under the tree. My brother may have missed it this time, I guess he tripped over something, otherwise he wouldn't have missed this opportunity. Yes. We originally agreed to participate together, but I didn't expect him to not come back yet. Speaking of this, she sighed softly and said with some worry, I don't know if he encountered any danger outside. Going out with the mercenaries of the black market, the degree of danger is not low. It doesn't matter, he will have a sense of propriety, even if he misses this time, there will be other opportunities in the future. Fengjiu, I heard that the people in the second-class countries are very strong. In fact, I'm a little worried that I won't even be able to enter the top 20 this time. She looked at her and said, this school tournament is a competition between the students from the 6th class and 2nd class countries to compete for the ranking list. Only we are from the 6-star academy, I'm really worried. The world is so big, it's normal for someone to be stronger than us. No matter what the result of the tournament is, as long as we try our best. She said with a smile. Yi Jing nodded her head and took out the Spiritual Academy's white uniform. Director Liu asked me to bring this for you. Other than being a student of the alchemy department, you are also a student of the Spiritual Academy. He wants you to wear the Spiritual Academy's uniform when you go out. Okay. She took the 2 sets of clothes and put them away in her space. Then I'll leave first. She said goodbye to him. Fengjiu sent her off, and after she left, she returned to her cave to refine pills. Until, 3 days later. Under the lead of the vice principal, Director Liu, and Director Liu, the 10 students of the academy gathered at the plaza one after another. Many students came to send them off. When Fengjiu brought Tun Yun to the plaza, she saw that 10 people had already arrived. Other than Nieteng, Xiao Han, and Yi Jing, there were also a few people that she had seen before. Almost all of them were students of the spiritual academy. She roughly looked around and saw that there were 9 people, including her, but Ouyang Xiu's figure was nowhere to be seen. After looking around, she saw a figure coming from not far away. "Fengjiu, you're here." Yi Jing came to her side. Seeing her looking at Ouyang Xiu, she also looked at him. Chapter 896. My dear disciple, you're here too. Fengjiu went up to greet him. Seeing his ashen and embarrassed expression, she couldn't help but laugh. Don't you need to greet your master when you see him? Quick, let's hear it. Her voice wasn't too loud, but it was heard by everyone around. They all looked at the two of them in astonishment. What was going on? How did he become the master of the disciple? Did the relationship between the two of them improve? They remembered that last year, Ouyang Sr. kept saying that he wanted to challenge Fengjiu, but he didn't succeed in the end. Could it be that something happened that they didn't know about when they didn't know? Don't go too far. He stared at the person in front of him who was laughing so hard that his eyes narrowed into a line and warned in a low voice. "AI, you were the one who was willing to do this. How can you say that I'm going too far? Don't you know that a teacher for a day is a teacher for life? Since you called me master, then you're my disciple. Don't worry, I'll recognize you." She chuckled and looked at him with a teasing tone. Ouyang Xiu opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't find the words to reply. In the end, he just snorted, "Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat you." As soon as his voice fell, he walked past him and stood behind the vice president. Seeing this, Fengjiu crossed her arms and smiled. This disciple of hers really wanted to save face. He obviously wasn't her opponent. "Fengjiu, why did you call Ouyang Sr. your disciple? You and him?" Yi Jing was curious. Last year, she was still avoiding him. Why did it seem like Ouyang Xiu was avoiding her now? Oh, didn't he keep saying that he wanted to challenge me last year? Then he ran halfway to stop me. In the end, I said that if he lost, he had to call me master. So when I won, he naturally became my disciple. Speaking of this, the smile on her face deepened. Hearing this, Yi Jing nodded, so that's how it is. Strange, isn't everyone here? Who are they waiting for? She asked. Seeing that the 10 students had all arrived, even the vice president and 2 teachers had arrived, but they didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. It seemed like they were still waiting for someone. I don't know. Maybe there are other instructors who haven't come yet. Fengjiu. Xiao Yihan walked over with large strides. Just as he was about to pat her shoulder and greet her, he remembered that she was a woman and could not help but retract his hand in embarrassment. I heard that you have been cultivating ever since you came back. Has your cultivation increased greatly recently? Seeing that it was him, she smiled and said, Not really. I've been concocting pills a lot recently. You, on the other hand, your cultivation has improved a lot after not seeing you for a while. Haha, that's right. I've worked hard. I was going to compete with Guan Shilin, but he hasn't come back since he went out this time. It's a pity that he even missed the school tournament. There will be more opportunities. Who knows, my brother might be training outside right now, which is even better than us in this academy. I don't deny that. Outside, it's a real fight. However, with his strength outside, aren't you worried? Seeing that she didn't look worried at all, he couldn't help but feel strange. It stood to reason that the relationship between the two was so good. Guan Shilin had been training outside for so long and hadn't come back. She should be anxious. Chapter 897. The white figure walked over from a distance. His steps were light and steady, and his figure was graceful. His clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal descending to the mortal world. When he appeared, many of the surrounding female students had red hearts in their eyes as they looked at him with gazes of adoration, shyness, and excitement. However, the immortal-like man didn't seem to notice the people around him. His gaze swept past Feng Jiu's face indifferently, taking in her astonishment. A smile seemed to appear at the corner of his lips. He slowly walked to the front of the vice-headmaster and said a few words to him. The vice-headmaster looked at everyone and said, "Since everyone is here, let's go." "Yes." Everyone responded. Just as they were about to walk out of the academy's gate, a voice suddenly sounded out. "Wait." Everyone was startled as they turned around to see a student of the academy. Some people recognized him as one of the academy's top 10 students. However, other than Xiaoyi Han, who took the top 3 spot, the person at the bottom was pushed out because of Feng Jiu. Unlike Xiaoyi Han, who had obtained his spot through a challenge, Feng Jiu had not fought with anyone in the top 10 and was directly selected by the dean. Therefore, other than a few people who knew about her strength, the majority of the people were puzzled and unconvinced about Feng Jiu's participation in the academy's competition. It's Senior Gung. This time, because Feng Jiu was selected, Senior Gung, who was ranked 10th, was pushed out. Senior Gung's strength wasn't only ranked 10th, but last year's ranking was overtaken. This year, his ranking was lowered and he was ranked 10th. Therefore, he wasn't able to participate in the academy's competition. However, I feel that his strength is stronger than Feng Jiu's. That's right, I think so too. However, it could be that Feng Jiu's background is stronger than Senior Gung's. Otherwise, Senior Gung wouldn't have been pushed out without even competing. It's said that Feng Jiu came from a 9th-tier country. However, something happened last year and the entire academy's teachers were sent to save him. I feel that his background isn't ordinary. Let's not talk about that. Look at student Gung's posture. Don't tell me he wants to challenge Feng Jiu here. He's already been selected, so how could the vice-head allow him to mess around? Hearing this, everyone's gazes fell on Senior Gung and then looked at Feng Jiu. They were all wondering if the two of them were going to fight. Is there something you need? The vice-head looked at the student surnamed Gung and asked. Vice-head, I refuse to accept this. His voice was deep, making his intentions clear. His gaze swept past the crowd and landed on Feng Jiu. What right does he have to represent the academy in the competition? I'm not convinced. He's just a new student who came in last year. How could he be stronger than me? I'm not convinced. I want to challenge him. Hearing those words, the vice school head frowned. These are the rules of the academy. We have our own reasons for replacing you. You may return now. Don't delay our departure time. There was a hint of displeasure in his voice. He was well aware of Feng Jiu's strength. It could be said that among the 10 students, Feng Jiu was the one he and the dean valued the most. The only reason they had a chance to enter the top 3 was because of Feng Jiu. Chapter 898. Could it be that he's stronger than me? He asked in a calm voice, unwilling to accept this. Among the 10 students, Nietang, Ouyang Xiu, and Xiaoyi Han all glanced at him when they heard this. The two in front didn't say anything, but their gazes were filled with contempt. As for Xiaoyi Han, he sneered when he heard this. Don't you know that he's stronger than you? If it weren't for the fact that he's stronger, you wouldn't have been pushed down. As for Feng Jiu, he stood beside Yi Jing as if it had nothing to do with him. The two of them were whispering to each other, but no one knew what they were talking about. Hearing Xiaoyi Han's words, the student surnamed Gung pursed his lips, clearly not believing it. Thus, his gaze fell on Feng Jiu, who was wearing the Spiritual Academy's uniform. Feng Jiu, do you dare to compete with me? If I lose, I'll accept it wholeheartedly. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Seeing him yell at him, Feng Jiu sighed in his heart. He glanced at him and said, but you really aren't my opponent. I'm really embarrassed to fight someone weaker than me. Hearing this, the student surnamed Gung's face darkened. You! Enough! Are you done with your nonsense? The Vice Academy head yelled in a deep voice, his sharp gaze sweeping over the student surnamed Gung. You're not his opponent. Our decision was made after discussion. We naturally knew what we were doing when we let him replace you. Moreover, he was already a Foundation establishment cultivator last year. Do you think that a great spirit master like you can be a match for a Foundation establishment cultivator? Hearing this, the student surnamed Gung was dumbfounded. Foundation establishment cultivator. Fengjiu. He's already a Foundation establishment cultivator. How is this possible? Not only him, but the surrounding students were also stunned. They couldn't believe it. After all, he just entered last year. How could he have already reached Foundation establishment last year? They hadn't heard of him before. If this was really a secret, wasn't it too good? Yes, I can testify that Fengjiu is indeed a Foundation establishment cultivator. Let alone you, even I am no match for her. Yi Jing said. She was ranked 5th in the top 10 and was stronger than Gung. However, she was no match for Fengjiu, let alone Yi Jing. When the student surnamed Gung heard this, he was startled and speechless for a long time. He could only stare blankly at Fengjiu. Alright, let's go. Don't be late. With that, the vice president strode out. This time, he stood there and watched, but did not open his mouth to protest. No matter how arrogant he was and how much he didn't want to admit it, he knew that if the vice president and Yi Jing said so, then it was most likely true. Everyone else watched as they left, and when they reached the entrance, the vice-chancellor waved his sleeve, and a spacecraft appeared in front of them. Everyone get on the spacecraft. The vice-chancellor said, letting everyone get on first. The 10 people who were selected, in addition to being the top 10 in the academy, also had good family backgrounds. Naturally, they didn't find the spacecraft novel. Therefore, each one of them calmly walked up. Finally, the two mentors, the vice-chancellor and Mo Chen boarded the spacecraft together. The spacecraft floated off the ground and flew into the sky. The people outside the gate watched for a long time before coming back to their senses. They looked on enviously as the spacecraft disappeared into the clouds. Then, they turned around and returned to the academy. In time, they would also be able to go to a second-class country, or even a first-class country, and enter a one-star academy. Chapter 899. The two-star academy was located in a second-class country near the Scarlet Spirit Mountain Range, and was built on a mountain. The area it occupied was several times larger than that of the Qingting 6-star academy. Every star class was different, so the resources were also different. Even the teachers and students were different. Living in a two-star academy, everyone had a sense of pride in their hearts. Pride that they were from a two-star academy, pride that they were superior to others. On this day, the people of the two-star academy arrived by airship one after another. As the host, the people of the two-star academy naturally took up the job of receiving them. Therefore, inside and outside the academy, students and teachers could be seen everywhere. When the Vice Academy head landed the airship, the people on the airship followed behind him and walked down. Looking at the majestic entrance of the academy, they could not help but be secretly surprised. The two huge stars on the entrance of the academy seemed to be made out of spirit stones. Under the sunlight, they reflected a dazzling light. The magnificent entrance of the academy was wide open, and at a glance, one could see the prosperity inside. How should I address you? May I know which academy you are from? One of the teachers came forward and asked. His eyes swept over the crowd and saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman, but after looking at them for a second or two, he moved his eyes away. In the world of immortal cultivation, there was no shortage of handsome men and beautiful women. We are from the 6-star academy. This old man's surname is Guan, and I am the Vice Academy head of the 6-Star Academy. These are the teachers leading the team. Old Man Guan gave a simple introduction. Oh, so you are from the 6-Star Academy. The teacher nodded and smiled, and called several students. You take the teachers and students of the 6-Star Academy to settle down first, and then arrange for a few people to familiarize themselves with the academy. Yes. Several students responded, and made a gesture to the Vice Academy head and the others. The Vice Academy head nodded, and followed them with the people behind him. This 2-Star Academy is really different, just look at the construction inside. Xiao Yihan walked and looked around, and praised again and again, look at the ground, isn't this a spiritual gathering array? But it seems to be somewhat different, moreover, the spiritual power aura here is really abundant. Well, if a 2-Star Academy is like this, then a 1-Star Academy would be even better. Feng Jiu also said with a smile. She looked around and saw that the students here were all wearing the same white uniform. The only difference was that they had 6-star badges on their clothes, while the other party had 2-star badges on their clothes. The students who were leading the way introduced the academy to the Vice Academy head and Vice Academy head. While listening to the words of the students behind them, they could not help but sneer in their hearts, country bumpkins are country bumpkins. The students were divided into 2 groups. One group led the vice headmaster and the mentors to a mountain peak where the mentors lived, while the other group led Feng Nine and the others to where the students lived. The men and women were separated, and the 4 of them stayed in the same courtyard. You 2 female students can stay here. Academy. Inside Academy's Academy. Of. The 2 male students said to Yi Jing and Zhou Xian. Since the 2 of them were female, their attitudes were relatively better. Chapter 900. Good, after resting for a while, we will go out and familiarize ourselves with the place. Feng Jiu smiled and stood together with the other 7 men. When the 2 male students saw this, they went out and said to Feng Jiu and the others, let's go. The men live on the other side. Saying that, they led the way in front. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they arrived at the other side where the male students lived. It was also a row of courtyards side by side. Many of the people who had arrived earlier had already moved into the courtyard. There were also some who were sitting at the stone table under the trees outside the courtyard, or were walking around. When the students saw that there were people coming, they looked at them one by one. When they saw the 6-star emblem on their clothes, the contempt in their eyes became heavier. It turned out that they were actually people from the 6-Star Academy. The 6-Star Academy was the lowest-ranked academy among all the academies present, as such the people from that place could not even enter their eyes. But this time, most of them did not even put the people from the 6-Star Academy in their eyes, as they felt that compared to them, they were completely incomparable. Here, you can look around and see if there are any vacant rooms. The 2 male students who were leading the way said, and then led them to the area where the male students lived and then left. Seeing the 2 people leave only a sentence and then leave, Xiao Yihan shook his head. Sure enough, the men are not as good as the women, they did not even say a word. Saying that, he walked into one of the courtyards. Just as he was about to go in and take a look, he was stopped by one of the men in the courtyard. Our courtyard is already full. Full. Xiao Yihan was startled, and said to Feng Jiu behind him, let's go to the back and take a look. N. Feng Jiu complied, and also walked to the back. Who would have thought that each courtyard was already occupied? When they wanted to go in, they all got the same sentence, full. After hearing this sentence many times, they could not help but laugh. After walking around, they came to the front of the courtyards. There were 1 or 2 3-star academy students sitting in each courtyard. Seeing them walk around, they raised their chins and looked at them. Feng Jiu crossed his arms over his chest and leaned against the courtyard door. With a smile on his face, he looked at the 2 3-star academy students in the courtyard. Is this courtyard full? Yes. The two people replied. All right then. Since it's full, let's do something direct. She rubbed her fists and rubbed them. A malicious smile appeared on her face. What if you came out on your own? Or should we drag you out? Although she didn't want to start a fight as soon as she arrived at this place, these people were occupying a courtyard by themselves. Wasn't this forcing them to fight? Everywhere was the same, the weak would only end up being bullied, and even if they were from a 6-star academy, but who among them would be bullied by others? Daring to bully them, this was absolutely asking for a beating. When the people in the courtyard heard this, they were stunned for a moment. They looked at them in disbelief and then laughed out loud. What did you say? Drag us out? Ha ha ha, just because of your 6-star academy? I'll do it, I'll do it. You guys, do you really think this place is yours? 1 or 2 people wanted to occupy a courtyard. Since they refused to let him out, then he would settle it with his fists. Anyway, my whole body is sore from sitting on the spaceship. I've been wanting to move around for a while now. Xiao Yihan shook his arms and walked in. Chapter 901. The people from the other academies did not move, but when the people from the 3-star academy saw that their academy's people were surrounded, they also surrounded them, and their auras surged. What? You want to compete? Good. Our hands are also itching. That's good, how about we go to the open space outside? Fengjiu said with a smile. When it came to fighting, she was not afraid of anyone. Good, let's see how much weight the people from your 6-star academy have. The people from the 3-star academy coldly snorted, and turned around to go to the open space outside, and the others also followed. Those who were originally sitting and chatting, on seeing this, also excitedly surrounded them, intending to watch a good show. Nieting's sharp eyes swept over those people, and stepped forward. How do you want to fight? Ouyang Xiu's face was also cold. He was being bullied, he would not blindly retreat, it was just a fight, who was afraid of who? Xiao Yihan's face was full of excitement, he had already wanted to test the skills of these people. What was the difference between the students from the 3-star academy and the students from the 6-star academy? The other few people were also the same, they also wanted to take this opportunity to test the strength of the people from the 3-star academy. Only Fengjiu's hands were itchy, and wanted to fight. She did not care about their cultivation, no matter how strong they could not be stronger than a nascent soul cultivator. She just wanted to exercise her hands and feet, and take the opportunity to give these people a warning. She believed that after this fight, no one would dare to come and find trouble with them. So what if they were from a 6-star academy? Who said that the strength of the people from the 3-star academy was stronger than them? Well, maybe the strength of these people was not bad, on their side. Apart from the last few in the top 10, the strength of the top 5 was not to be underestimated. Hearing Nieting ask how to fight, she could not help but sneer, glanced at him and said, "You still want to ask them how to fight? Of course it's a melee, the faster we finish, the more we can go back to the courtyard to rest. Do you want to slowly fight them one-on-one?" While speaking, the corners of her mouth hooked up, and she clenched her fist and shouted, "No matter how you fight, just beat them to the ground." Bang! One of the 3-star students didn't expect Fengjiu to suddenly attack and was caught off guard. With a bang, his eyes were punched, and he staggered back a few steps before stabilizing himself. He covered his stinging eyes and glared at Fengjiu. "You sneak attacked me." Fengjiu snorted and said arrogantly, "What sneak attack? I was standing right in front of you, swinging my fist. Who can you blame for your slow reaction? Damn it!" That person shouted angrily, clenching his fists and rushing forward. Seeing this, the others also joined in the chaotic battle. In an instant, the empty space was occupied by them. Low growls and the sounds of fists landing accompanied by cries of pain rang out, causing the surrounding students to be flabbergasted. This was because they weren't fighting in a proper manner. Instead, they were waving their fists and fighting in a chaotic battle. One of them threw a punch, while the other threw a kick. Some of them hugged their thighs, while others threw a punch at their faces. The fight was so intense that everyone was dumbfounded. Ah! Roar! Damn it! Who kicked my butt? Hiss! Look closely and hit. Don't hit your own people. Ah! Damn it, you brat, don't keep hitting my face. Chapter 902. Bang! Only by punching the face can you see the effect. While speaking, Fengjiu once again punched out, but this time, the punch landed on the stomach of the male student. Poof! The male student cried out in pain. The blow to his abdomen made him bend down instinctively. He lowered his hands to protect his abdomen. But at this moment, another fist flew towards his face. He was so scared that he retreated. Seeing this, Fengjiu grinned and swung her fist. She turned around and punched the face of the student who was about to sneak up on her from behind. An! That person groaned. He only felt that his cheek was punched, his whole person was somewhat dazed, he felt a salty taste in his mouth, he touched the corner of his mouth, and took out a tooth that was mixed with blood. Seeing that tooth, that 3-star student sucked in a breath of cold air. You actually knocked out my teeth too? You brat, I will beat you to death. That student was furious, he threw out his tooth, clenched his fist and punched towards Fengjiu. However, his fist had not yet landed on Fengjiu's body, when Nieting kicked him away. Nieting stood beside Fengjiu, he glanced at her and then looked away. In the scuffle, he was not too far away from her, he was almost 3 steps away from her. When she was punching people, he did not intervene, but those who were planning to attack her from behind, were kicked away by him. He did not speak, he knew that she did not want him to, therefore, he only silently stood by her side to protect her. However, Fengjiu did not appreciate it. After another student was sent flying, she shouted, "Enough, don't fight." When the few people from the 6-star academy heard her words, they stopped and shrank to the side. On both sides, it was not only the people from the 3-star academy who were beaten up. On Fengjiu's side, in addition to her, Nieteng, Ouyang Xiu and Xiao Yi Han, the other 4 people were also beaten to the point that their faces were bruised, but compared to the people from the 3-star academy, their injuries could be considered light, while the other side's face was completely swollen. Hiss! Damn it! Are you really from a 6-star academy? One of the 3-star academy's students clenched his teeth as he glared at them. With that kind of skill, they were even faster than them, especially those 4 people. Whoever got close to them would only end up being beaten up. How could they not know that the fighting prowess of the people from the 6-star academy had become so strong? Although it was a chaotic battle, it was almost a one-sided beating. It was too infuriating. He is from a 6-star academy, what about it? Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and glanced at the man who was scared by her. Don't worry, we won't be as tasteless as you, 1 or 2 people occupying a courtyard. We only need 2 courtyards, the rest is up to you. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned and walked into the first courtyard. She saw that other than the 2 rooms on the left and right, there were also 2 rooms in the middle. The 2 rooms in the middle were slightly larger, so she chose the one on the left. When Xiao Yi Han saw this, he was about to walk into the room on the right, but he saw that a figure was faster than him, and chose the room on the left. Ouyang Xiu saw that Fengjiu, Nieteng and Xiao Yi Han were in this courtyard, so he walked out and went directly to the courtyard next door. He did not intend to stay in the same courtyard as Fengjiu, because in this courtyard, he would see him all day long, and would not be willing to be taken advantage of by him verbally. So, in the end, the 8 people stayed in this courtyard. 4 people to a courtyard, 1 person to a room, so they had their own space. Chapter 903. Hearing her door open, Xiao Yi Han also came out and asked, "Fengjiu, do you want to go out?" "I'll go with you." "Good. Let's call Yi Jing together," she said with a smile. and walked out with him. In the other two rooms, Nieteng stood at the window, watching the two go out, but did not follow. As for the students in the other room, they were resting in their rooms, and did not intend to go out. On the other side, the mentors of the academy were talking about the other students of the academy. Oh! The students of the 3-star academy and the students of the 6-star academy fought? Yes. Some of the students ran over and said that some of the male students from the 3-star academy had occupied one or two of their courtyards. Later on, the students from the 6-star academy fought with them, and ended up in a chaotic battle. It was a complete mess, and some of the students were beaten black and blue. Looking at it, it was very funny. One of the teachers shook his head and said with a smile. So, in the end, the 6-star academy lost? No, the 6-star academy won, but the 3-star academy lost. In the end, several of them could not stand up, but I did not expect that the strength of the 6-star academy students would be so good. There is such a thing. Another mentor was somewhat surprised, and then said with a smile, "This way, it is interesting. I originally thought that this year's ranking would not be interesting, but looking at this year's competition should be very strong. It really makes people look forward to it." Yes. The performance of the 6-star academy students was quite good. They directly beat up the students of the 3-star academy. I believe that in the following days, no one will dare to find trouble with them. Let them come in advance, and live in our academy for half a month, so that they can secretly compete with each other, and also stimulate their fighting strength. I hope that when the time comes, they will not let us down. Oh, no matter what, we will not be able to surpass our 2-star academy students to win first place. These few academies matters, let them go, don't worry about them. One of the mentors waved his hand. I still have something to do, so I will go back first. Seeing that the mentor left, the other people also left one after another. On the other side, Feng Jiu and Xiao Yihan came to the courtyard where Yi Jing and Zhou Xian lived. Yi Jing. Feng Jiu called from outside, but he didn't go in. After a while, Yi Jing's door opened. She walked out and nodded at Feng Jiu before walking to Zhou Xian's room and knocking on the door. "Zhou Xian, we're going out for a walk. Do you want to come with us?" The door to Zhou Xian's room was also opened. She glanced at Yi Jing in front of the door, then looked at Feng Jiu and Lu Yi, nodding her head. "I'll go with you." She was unfamiliar with this place, so it was better to have someone from the same academy as her to keep her company. "Then let's go," she said with a smile and walked out of the courtyard with her. The four of them walked around together, familiarizing themselves with the surrounding environment. They also heard a lot about the 2-star academy from the mouths of some of the students. In the evening, the four of them received a jade strip sound transmission from the vice headmaster. "The vice-chancellor wants us to go over. He said he has something to tell us." Yi Jing looked at them and said. "Yes, we received it too. Let's go back and see what's going on," the few of them said as they walked back together. Chapter 904. When they arrived inside, they saw that not only the vice-headmaster was there, but even the two teachers and Mo Chen were also there. The other students had already arrived, except for the vice-headmaster, Mo Chen and the two teachers who were sitting in the middle of the courtyard. The other students were standing to the side. Vice-headmaster, teacher, young master Mo Chen. Several people came in, and greeted them. "We came here to talk to you about a matter," the vice-headmaster said, as he looked at the crowd and smiled. At noon, the vice-headmasters and the deans of the 2-star academies had a discussion, and came up with a plan for the students who came to participate in the competition. He looked at the crowd, and said with a smile, "The 2-star academy has a spiritual land. There is a huge spiritual gathering array. This spiritual gathering array is condensed with spirit stones. Its power is extraordinary. It can almost be said that this spiritual land is the holy land for cultivation in the 2-star academy. The spiritual chi in the bodies of the students who cultivate there will be several times faster than outside. After discussing with the deans of the two-star academy, we decided that in this half a month, the participating students will be able to cultivate in the spiritual land for half a month. We will send you in tonight, you should prepare yourselves. In addition, in order to stimulate your cultivation and fighting intent, the deans of the two-star academy will give each of you 10 spirit stones. During the half a month inside, you can rob other people's spirit stones, you can fight, but you are not allowed to kill. After half a month, the one who has the most spirit stones will be exempted from fighting, and can directly enter the top 10 competition. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other. Ouyang Xiu asked, "Does this mean that the competition will be brought forward?" "Well, you can say that." The vice headmaster stroked his beard, and nodded in agreement. "Only half a month's time, we have to protect the spirit stones, and also rob the spirit stones, there is simply no time to cultivate." Feng Jiu frowned. He felt that even if he entered such a place, he wouldn't have the time to cultivate just by guarding against others. How would he have the time to cultivate? Ha ha ha, this spiritual land is the holy land of the two-star academy, even the students of the two-star academy are not allowed to enter, it is already not easy for them to let you in, they certainly will not say that they will give you a complete time to cultivate inside, after all, even if the spiritual power inside is abundant, it is still condensed by the spirit stones, and the spirit stones used in the spiritual gathering array. The more people go in, the more spiritual power they will absorb. The more spirit stones and the spirit gathering array will consume. The vice head smiled and looked at them. The place with the most abundant spiritual qi in the spirit realm is the place with the spiritual qi gathering array. If you can find it and cultivate there, I believe it will be of great help to you. Alright, go back to your rooms and prepare. We'll wait for you outside. As soon as his voice fell, he walked out with the two mentors. When Mo Chen walked out, he glanced at Feng Jiu, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything and just followed the vice headmaster out. Nye Ting's eyes were cold as he stared at the departing figure of Mo Chen, and then glanced at Feng Jiu, before he turned around and entered his room. "Yi Jing, Zhou Xian, do you need to go back to your rooms? If you have something in your room, it would be better to take it with you." Feng Jiu looked at the two of them and said. The two of them shook their heads. "No, we haven't taken out our things yet, we are taking them with us." Chapter 905. The 10 people came outside. Feng Jiu did not want to bring the swallowing cloud into the spiritual land, so he entrusted it to the vice headmaster to take care of it. The group of people came to the designated place, where the people from the other academies had already arrived. When they saw them, especially the students from the 3-star academy, their faces were still bruised and swollen, as they stared hatefully at them. Feng Jiu and the others did not pay attention to them, but their eyes fell on the 10 people from the 2-star academy. There were 8 men and 2 women, all of them were wearing the same white robes, with 2 stars on their robes. Seeing the 10 people, except for Feng Jiu, the other people slightly frowned, because the strength of these 10 people was very strong. 8 of them were foundation establishment cultivators. Among the 8 foundation establishment cultivators, 3 of them were intermediate foundation establishment cultivators, 1 was peak foundation establishment cultivator, and the other 2 were not foundation establishment cultivators, but they were still peak great spirit master cultivators. With such strength, they were really much stronger than the people from the other academies. If the strength of the people from the other academies could compete with them, then it would be the students from the 2-star academy. When they were sizing up the 10 people, the 10 people were also sizing up Nyetang and the others. After seeing their cultivation, the 10 people faintly looked away, although they did not say anything, but their expressions were full of arrogance. Compared to them, on the side of the 6-star academy, except for Feng Jiu, Nyetang, Ouyang Xiu and Xiaoyi Han who were foundation establishment cultivators, the rest were all great spirit masters. Moreover, not all of them were peak great spirit masters. With such strength, the people from the 2-star academy really did not put them in their eyes. The dean and the vice headmaster of the 2-star academy looked at the students in front of them, and smiled, as they distributed the spirit stones to them. These spirit stones have a specific mark, and belong to our 2-star Academy's spirit stones, even if you have some on your body, it will not be mixed together. Well, I believe that your headmasters and the vice headmasters have already explained to you, so I will not say much. You can all enter the transfer array. After entering the transfer array, even the students of the Academy will not be in the same place, they will be scattered. The Dean of the 2-star Academy said with a smile, and let the vice headmaster open the transfer array, and send them into the spiritual land. Go. Be careful. The vice president and the others looked at Fengjiu and the others. Yes, vice head. I'll have to trouble you to take care of my little beast. She looked at Tun Yun, who was standing beside the vice president. Many people had seen her bring Tun Yun along. If she were to directly put him into her space, she was afraid that it would cause trouble. Thus, she could only leave him in the care of the vice president. I know. The vice head nodded, thinking that the cloud-devouring beast was just a pet. He didn't know that it was a divine beast. The students from the other academies also gave instructions to the other academies before walking into the transmission array. There were a total of 50 students from the 5 academies, so they were divided into 3 groups. The vice headmaster and the others watched as Fengjiu's group disappeared into the transmission array before turning to leave. Little thing, let's go. You've been following me since before your master came out. As he spoke, he picked up the round swallow cloud. However, Mo Chen, who was dressed in a white robe, came forward and said to the vice president, "Leave this little pet to me." This. The vice president hesitated. Chapter 906. I've had nothing to do recently, so I'll pass the time. Saying this, he carried Tun Yun away. Seeing him leave with his pet, the vice director shook his head and revealed a helpless smile before leaving as well. At the same time, Fengjiu, who had just come out of the transfer array, felt a force pushing her back. She staggered back a few steps. When she steadied herself and looked around, she saw that it was pitch black and she was the only one here. Thus, she took a deep breath and used her divine sense to investigate. She found that there was no one else within a 500-meter radius. Seeing that the sky was pitch black, she didn't plan on resting. Just as the Vice Academy head had said, the spiritual energy here was extremely abundant. Even the sealed territory in Qingting Academy couldn't compare to this place. Moreover, she discovered that the spiritual energy here was even richer than in her space. However, the purity of the spiritual energy here couldn't be compared to her space. The dense spiritual energy here is condensed from the spirit gathering array and spirit stones. It's different from the space. However, with spirit stones aiding in cultivation, cultivating here can also increase one's strength. Moreover, we only have half a month here, so there's no need to think about resting. I should hurry up and find the center of the spirit gathering array. She softly muttered and looked around. Due to the spiritual energy in the air, it wasn't easy to find the center of the spiritual energy. Thus, she closed her eyes and used her spiritual energy to sense it. Because she had the purest spiritual energy in her body and had a profound spiritual body, she was more sensitive to spiritual energy than the average person. Thus, using her body and spiritual energy to sense the source of the spiritual energy wasn't difficult for her. However, if it was Nietang and the others, finding the source of the spiritual energy would be a bit more difficult. After a while, she opened her eyes and turned around, heading towards a pitch-black area. Her white figure flitted through the darkness like a ghost, coming and going without a trace. In the same spirit realm, in a different place, the others also relaxed for a while after landing and began to search for the location of the spirit gathering array. In this place, the best place to cultivate was the surroundings of the spirit gathering array. Therefore, the students who came here would automatically search for this place. As long as they reached this place first, they wouldn't have to worry about not being able to meet other students and snatch their resources. However, some people didn't care too much about avoiding the battles because they were confident in their own strength. They felt that even if they didn't avoid the battles, they would still be able to enter the top 10. In the darkness of the night, white figures were moving around, searching for the location of the spirit gathering formation. Compared to the others, Fengjiu already knew the approximate location and was heading in that direction. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly rushed towards her. She dodged to the side to avoid the other party's attack. At the same time, she retreated to open up the distance between them. Above the white robes, there were 2 stars, indicating that he was a student of a 2-star academy. Humph. Consider yourself unlucky to have met me. Hand over your spirit stone pouch, the male student said in a low voice as he stared at Fengjiu with a sharp gaze. He was a Foundation Establishment middle stage cultivator, and Fengjiu's strength was only at the Foundation Establishment early stage. Therefore, it seemed that she was really unlucky to have met a Foundation Establishment middle stage cultivator. However, was she really unlucky? Chapter 907. He dared to snatch her spirit stones. Then don't blame her for snatching them back. You're the one who delivered yourself to me. Quick, hand over the bag of spirit stones. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. She narrowed her eyes as she stared at the bag on his waist. It seemed like he was very confident in his own abilities. She had kept her bag of spirit stones in her space, but this guy actually hung it on his waist. TSK, wasn't this clearly asking her to snatch it? Ha ha ha. What a joke. He raised his head and laughed as if he heard something funny. Come and snatch it if you can. The moment he said that, a white figure flashed and attacked Fengjiu. Since you said it, don't blame me for being impolite. She curled her lips and flashed out at the same time. Her target was the bag of spirit stones on his waist. The night wind blew and lifted her white robe. Her outer robe was lifted by the night wind, revealing the rainbow-glazed feather that was hidden by her outer robe. When he saw the rainbow-glazed feather on Fengjiu's waist, that student's eyes lit up. It's the rainbow-glazed feather. Bang, bang, bang. When the 2 of them exchanged blows, their palms collided and produced a heavy sound. The airflow and pressure surged together. Both of their movements were extremely fast. Their movements were so fast that no one could see their movements. One could only hear the swift and fierce airflow streaking across the night sky. And that student was hit by Fengjiu's palm and groaned. When he retracted his palm, Fengjiu's hand flicked down and directly snatched the bag of spirit stones from his waist. Give me back my spirit stones. He ignored the pain in his body and angrily shouted as he pounced forward. Fengjiu easily dodged and smiled. Don't be too greedy. My rainbow-glazed feather is not something that anyone can covet. As for your 10 spirit stones, I'll take them. That student was furious. When he saw her flash to the left, he immediately chased after her. Give me back my spirit stones. Damn it, I won't let you off. After chasing for a short distance, the student lost sight of him. He gritted his teeth and continued to search. This was not just a matter of 10 spirit stones, but also a matter of a single breath. He was a dignified intermediate stage Foundation Establishment cultivator from a 2-star academy. How could he let a kid from a 6-star academy snatch away his spirit stones? If this were to spread out, how would he be able to walk in the academy in the future? However, he didn't know that after Fengjiu led him away, he turned back to the original path. Looking at the male student who was out of sight, she couldn't help but reveal a light smile. You can slowly chase after him. I don't have time to play with you. She tossed the bag of spirit stones in her hand and opened it. Sure enough, there were 10 spirit stones inside. Thus, she directly put them into her space and continued to search for the spirit gathering formation. After about half an hour or so, she came to a place where she stopped. Because there was an array formation in front of her, she couldn't rush around randomly. She had to first see what kind of array formation it was, and then go through it. Walking into the array formation, she paid attention to it. After walking around for a few laps, she walked for nearly half an hour before she came out of the 10 array formations. After passing through the last fog array formation, she arrived inside. But, when she arrived inside, she couldn't help but stare. Chapter 908. Hiss. What a huge sum. Such a huge amount of spirit stones. She gasped slightly. Her tone was filled with surprise and astonishment, but her eyes were filled with excitement. This place was the center of the spirit gathering array. If she cultivated here, would she be able to break through again in half a month? Thinking of this, her heart became excited. She was now at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. If she broke through again, she would enter the golden core stage. Even if her spiritual power couldn't break through, her profound strength could still advance. This place is really good. There are so many resources here, but no one said that I can't use them. Then I can use them. She muttered as she squatted down to touch the spirit stones under her feet. Then, she looked at the large expanse of spirit stones. From the center point, there should be a spirit gathering formation laid out with spirit stones within 100 meters. No wonder she had to walk for half an hour in here. I have to cultivate. It's such a waste not to cultivate in such a good place. But before that, I have to set up another array around here. She excitedly murmured and walked outside with light steps. She planned to add something to the surrounding array. This way, even if a student found this place, they could only cultivate outside the spirit gathering array and would not be able to come in and disturb her. Thus, she really did set up an array outside. After strengthening the array outside, she returned inside and sat down cross-legged in the center of the spirit gathering array. Even though it was late at night, under the flickering light of the various colors of spirit stones, the surroundings were bright. A dense aura of spiritual power pervaded from the ground and dispersed into the air. Outside the huge spirit gathering array, there was a thick fog, so thick that it blocked the view of the outside. She sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit gathering array, but wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, she took out medicine from her space. This is suitable for advancement. This has the effect of reducing the power of lightning. This can temper the body. She placed several bottles of medicine and pills in front of her, planning to use these things to advance. In this place, the dense aura of spiritual power was the best place to advance. With the spirit gathering array protecting it, she didn't have to worry about the lack of spiritual power. After making up her mind, she immediately began to cultivate. As the origin cultivation method rotated, the surrounding spirit power aura seemed to be stirred. The spirit power aura that was originally spreading outwards rotated in the air and drilled into her body bit by bit. 1 day, 2 days passed, and aside from her, no one else had come here yet. However, they had met in the forest, and had also exchanged blows with each other. When they met people from different academies, both sides had made up their minds to snatch the spirit stones. There were also some people who found a remote place to sit cross-legged and cultivate when they couldn't find the center of the spirit gathering formation. He thought to himself, since I'm already here, I don't want to waste such a good opportunity to cultivate without getting any spirit stones or improving my cultivation. But on the evening of the second day, finally a student came to the outside of the spirit gathering array. This student had a 2-star badge, and was a student of the 2-star academy. After he came to the outside of the spirit gathering array, he also tried to break through the array formation to enter the central point, but the array formation inside had infinite changes, and was simply not something that he could break through. Chapter 909. At night, more and more people arrived. Once they had a disagreement, they would start fighting. They would fight over spirit stones and resources. After all, even if this was the outer circle of the spirit gathering array, there were many people cultivating here. The spirit qi in this area would naturally disperse and be absorbed. Therefore, they did not want anyone to fight with them. Fengjiu could faintly hear the fighting outside, but she did not pay attention to it. At this time, she was using the Hunyuan cultivation method to absorb the surrounding spirit qi. The spirit gathering array's spirit qi was absorbed by her body and dissolved into it. If it was someone else, their body would not be able to withstand absorbing so much spirit qi, but she was different. She separated a part of the spirit qi to nourish the azure lotus in her dantian. This was the first time so much spirit qi was nourishing the azure lotus. In addition to nourishing the azure lotus, she was also expanding the meridians in her body and gathering the spirit qi in her dantian. She planned to break through to the gold core stage with the help of pills and medicines. As long as she broke through the foundation establishment stage and entered the gold core stage, it would be a good thing for her whether she could enter the peak stage or not. At dawn, the third day arrived. Nieteng, Ouyang Xiu and Xiao Yihan also found the spirit gathering array. Seeing the students sitting around cultivating, they also planned to find a place to sit and cultivate. After all, compared to avoiding battles, they were more interested in increasing their strength. Then, the three of them each found a place to sit down. The 2-star students who were cultivating closed their eyes and shouted, "Get lost." The word scram was something the three of them had rarely heard. Among them, Nieteng and Ouyang Xiu were both crown princes of 6th-class countries. They were second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. Since they were young, they had been respected. Who would dare to be presumptuous towards them? As for Xiao Yihan, although he was not born in the royal family, he was also from a noble family. Usually, there were not many people who dared to talk to him like this, let alone people from the 2-star academy. Therefore, when they heard this sentence, the three people's faces sank. "What did you say? Say it again." Ouyang Xiu coldly stared at the 2-star student, his hand was already on the sword at his waist. "I told you to get lost." The man stood up. He was a peak foundation establishment stage cultivator. Naturally, he did not put the three in his eyes. "Chi! What a joke!" Xiao Yihan sneered, and in the next moment, his figure swept out and attacked him. His raised palm carried a sharp wind, and with a whoosh, it seemed to have turned into a sharp blade in an instant. "You overestimate yourself." That person snorted coldly and also went up to meet him. He struck with his sword the moment he attacked, unlike Xiao Yihan who was fighting with his bare hands. The sharp edge of the sword slashed and cut through Xiao Yihan's clothes at an extremely fast speed. A trace of blood faintly seeped out. Seeing this scene, Nieteng's eyes flashed with a cold light. Just as Ouyang Xiu was about to make his move, he immediately rushed forward. Both of them were peak foundation establishment stage cultivators, both sides had paid attention to each other, and had evaluated each other's strength. It could be said that the 2-star academy regarded Nieteng as a formidable opponent, and Nieteng also regarded him as an opponent. As for Fengjiu, Nieteng had never thought of beating her, so he naturally did not see her as an opponent. Chapter 9-10. As the two peak foundation establishment cultivators fought, the airflow fluctuated and affected the surrounding people. When Ouyang Xiu and Xiao Yihan saw that Nieteng was not at a disadvantage, they walked away and found a place to sit cross-legged and cultivate. The two people on the other side fought for a few rounds, and seeing that it was difficult to determine the winner, after a few rounds, the two people stopped. "Even if we continue to fight, we will not be able to determine the winner. You and I will fight in the individual competition." The student from the 2-star academy said in a cold voice, coldly glancing at Nieteng, and then found a place to sit down. Seeing this, Nieteng also turned around and found a place to sit cross-legged and cultivate. Indeed, if he really spent all his time here fighting, then it would really be a waste of this opportunity. But, He glanced around and saw that there were about 20 cultivators cultivating and absorbing the spiritual power aura around them. There were 2 or 3 students from each of the academies, but the majority of them were from the 2-star academy, with 5 of them in this area. But, he could not find Fengzhou's figure in this area. Could it be that he could not find this place? Putting aside the thoughts in his mind, he closed his eyes and started to absorb the spiritual qi in his body, temporarily not thinking about this problem. Time passed day by day, the people in this area crazily cultivated day and night. But, when the people in the outer circle cultivated for a few days, they found that the spiritual qi in the air seemed to be gradually thinning out, and the progress of their cultivation methods also slowed down. Their bodies wanted to absorb the spiritual qi, but it was as if they were competing with other people. Unexpectedly it was very difficult. Strange. What's going on? Why is the spiritual qi scarce? I also feel that the spiritual qi is scarce. It seems that the spiritual qi in the air is rushing towards the spiritual qi gathering array behind us. But this is not right. The spirit gathering array was set up by the academy's deans, and there were more than 1 or 2 arrays. Even if the teachers wanted to enter, it would be difficult. What's more, the spiritual energy gathered by the spirit gathering array was released from the inside. How could the surrounding spiritual energy be sucked into the center? Everyone outside was discussing. Even Nieteng, Ouyang Xiu, and Xiao Han were slightly surprised as they watched the spirit energy in the air rush towards the center. However, this phenomenon only lasted for an hour. After an hour, the spirit energy stopped rushing towards the center. However, the spiritual aura in the air was still thin. Could it be that our cultivation speed is too fast and we've absorbed too much spiritual energy, so the spiritual energy in this area can't supply us? Someone asked. If that's the case, then we'll have to wait until tomorrow. I've heard from my mentor that the spiritual qi here will grow on its own. The spirit gathering array and the spirit stones are compatible with each other. Even if the spiritual qi in this area can't be supplied, it will recover after a period of rest. Thus, everyone took advantage of this time to get up and stretch their limbs. Some took out dry rations to replenish their strength, while others were thinking about snatching the spirit stones of others. Chapter 9:11. It is said that this spirit egg fruit blooms every 10 years and bears fruit every 10 years. A single spirit egg fruit can allow one's cultivation to advance by 1 level. The spirit egg fruit contains spiritual energy and nutrients that can be nourished in the body for half a month. If a mortal eats one, it can cure all diseases and increase their lifespan by 10 years. TSK, it is really a good thing. While she was eating, she was muttering while staring at the spirit egg fruit in her hand. When she went to participate in the pill appraisal convention, she was aiming for this spirit egg fruit, because she intended to plant some spirit fruits in her space, but she did not want to plant too many of the common varieties. But this spirit egg fruit, even she did not know where to get it. Now that she had 3 of them, she planned to plant them in the space after eating them. Then she would try to see if she could use the potion to speed up their growth. She was planning in her mind, if possible, she intended to plant one in the Phoenix Imperial Palace in the future, so that her father and the others could also eat this fruit. After eating the spirit egg fruit, she flashed into her space, buried the core in an open space in the space, and watered it with some spiritual water. Inside the space, Old White saw her come in, and excitedly went forward. Master, 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 did you come in to see me? It ran over from afar. This place was like a world of its own. The vast space allowed Lao Bai to run freely in this place. She patted his head, and said with a smile, I was cultivating in the sacred land of the 2-star academy, so I came in to plant the core. Oh right, when you are here, remember to help me water the flowers and spirit fruits. Master, those spirit fruits that you planted, I don't see any spirit fruits, only trees and leaves, and they are not even half my height. Old White curled his lips and said, his master said that those were spirit fruits, but in his eyes, they were no different from grass, and he did not see any fruits. That is because I planted them not long ago. Okay, I will go out first, she said, and then flashed out of the space, and returned to the middle of the spirit gathering array. After stretching her hands and feet, she felt that after eating the spirit egg fruit, her stomach was full, and the spiritual power in her body was also warm and surging, which was very comfortable. There are still 7 or 8 days left. During this period of time, I must break through the peak of the foundation establishment stage and enter the golden core stage, she said as she hurriedly sat down cross-legged to cultivate. As for the people in the outer circle, they rested for a while. Seeing that their spirit force had recovered, they prepared to sit down and cultivate again. Who knew that after sitting down to cultivate for a while, it was as if a powerful force was snatching their spirit force. The spirit force that was about to enter their bodies suddenly turned around and went to the center of the spirit gathering formation, causing them to be dumbfounded. What's going on? Luckily, I haven't activated my cultivation technique yet. If my spirit chi was forcefully snatched away while I was cultivating, even if I didn't die, I would still be seriously injured from the backlash of my chi and blood. A student patted his chest in fear, and cold sweat broke out all over his body. What's in that spirit gathering array? There's definitely something wrong with this situation. A spirit gathering array should be able to gather spirit chi and spread it to the surroundings. It shouldn't be able to snatch the surrounding spirit chi and aura like this. This is definitely man-made. Chapter 9:12. Hearing this, Nietang and the others' expressions became strange because the three of them thought of Fengjiu at the same time. If there was someone who could enter the spirit gathering formation, it would be Fengjiu. Moreover, they already felt that it was strange. How could the three of them and even the students from the other academies find this place, but Fengjiu was nowhere to be seen. It turned out that she had entered the center of the spirit gathering formation. If that was the case, then they could find a suitable reason for the strange decrease in spirit energy. At this time, Fengjiu did not pay attention to the people outside the spirit gathering formation. She was diligently cultivating, and the traces of spirit energy happily entered her body as if they had found their mother and merged with the spirit energy in her body. Damn it! If we don't break this formation, we won't be able to cultivate, one person said as he looked at the formation and planned to go in and try again. They also studied formations, but they only knew some of the more common and simple ones. They had never learned this kind of formation that protected the spirit gathering formation and prevented people from entering. Thus, even if they wanted to try to break it, the success rate was very low. Thinking about this, some students wanted to go in and try to crack it, while others clenched their teeth and decided to move further away from this place. That way, even if the spirit force aura here was decreasing, it wouldn't affect them further away. However, the spirit force aura further away would be thinner, but it was still better than being caught off guard and having their cultivation interrupted. Some students who did not believe in heresy insisted on going in, but after a few people tried, some were trapped inside and could not walk out. They had no choice but to call for help, but unfortunately, no one paid them any attention. Some walked out dejectedly after trying a few times and cursed in a flustered and exasperated manner. In the end, they flung their sleeves and left. Seeing this scene, Nieteng's eyes moved slightly and his gaze fell on the depths of the spirit gathering formation, the place isolated by the fog. Was she cultivating in there? She was the only one who could leave so many people at a loss. His heart sunk, an indescribable feeling welled up within him. He could only quietly turn around and walk to a place a little further away to cultivate. Ouyang Xiu pursed his lips and stared at the mist. He asked Xiaoyi Han beside him, "Is Fengjiu inside?" He, didn't I hear that you lost to her and acknowledged her as your master? How can you call master by his name? Xiaoyi Han looked at him mockingly. When he saw Xiaoyi Han's face darken and he flung his sleeves to leave, he couldn't help but rub his chin. His gaze fell on the fog and he shook his head. This scourge. Sighing softly, he could only turn around and walk further away. If he was too close, he would really be harmed by her. However, he could not walk too far away. At least when she came out, he would still be able to see her. Time passed, and the days inside seemed to pass peacefully. Because it was getting closer and closer to the time to leave, the competition between the students became more intense. Chapter 9:13. What's going on? What's going on? Why is the spiritual power flowing back? The people in the forest were extremely surprised. The people who were originally cultivating stood up and followed the spiritual power flowing back. They wanted to know what was going on. Even the students who were fighting for the spirit stones could not help but stop and follow them. They wanted to know what was going on. Why did the vitality of the trees here seem to be decreasing? Everyone was shocked. They could not help but shout and speed up their search. This was the secret territory of the Two-Star Academy. It was the holy land of cultivation for the Two-Star Academy. A huge amount of spiritual power was used to arrange a huge spirit gathering array. This place had existed for hundreds of years, but such a thing had never happened before. Unlike the people who came from other places in the secret territory, they had not gone far. They were cultivating not far from the spirit gathering array. When they saw this scene, they were very calm. Because after they found that there were people inside, this kind of phenomenon appeared once every 2 or 3 days. It was as if the spiritual power was sucked dry by a vampire in an instant. There was not even a little bit of spiritual power in the surrounding area. They had already moved out, and moved out even more. They had already moved out from the 100 meters to a few hundred meters away. From the initial shock, anger, and disbelief to now, they were able to calmly look at all of this. Wasn't there an evildoer who was cultivating inside? They did not know which academy's evildoer was, but he actually passed through the layers of spirit arrays to reach the most central point. Humph! They were waiting here, waiting for that scourge to come out and ruthlessly beat him up. Otherwise, it would be difficult to quell their anger of having their spiritual chi snatched away. Strange, why is today different from the usual? Some people said, looking at the surrounding spiritual power flowing towards the center of the spirit gathering array. Even the vitality of the surrounding trees was being snatched away. They could not help but feel surprised. When Yetang, Ouyang Xiu, and Xiaoyi Han saw this scene, they also stood up. Looking at the center of the spirit gathering array, they were shocked. Yetang and Xiaoyi Han knew that Fengjiu was abnormal. Although they were shocked by this big movement, they also knew that every time Fengjiu advanced, it would be abnormal. However, she had only reached the peak of foundation establishment last year. Could it be that in less than a year's time, she was going to advance again? If she really was going to advance, then this time, she would have entered the golden core stage. As for Ouyang Xiu, when Fengjiu was killed last time, he did not know anything. Therefore, when he saw this movement, he was shocked. He thought that Fengjiu was cultivating some evil technique. Otherwise, not only would she be able to absorb the surrounding spiritual power, but why would she not even let go of the vitality of the trees in here? Hey, I knew she was a scourge. The spiritual power is disappearing so quickly, and even the vitality of the trees is being sucked away. This mystic realm won't be destroyed, right? If it's destroyed, then it will be troublesome. Xiaoyi Han stomped his feet and paced back and forth. He was a little anxious and uneasy, but more than that, he was full of admiration and admiration. Chapter 9:14. That Fengjiu. What kind of demonic technique is she practicing? Ouyang Xiu hesitated and asked the question in his heart. Demonic technique? Xiaoyi Han was stunned, then laughed out loud. She's about to advance. Just look at the commotion. She's about to advance. Just watch. She'll definitely break through before tomorrow. Hearing this, Ouyang Xiu frowned. I heard she only reached foundation establishment last year. Yes. Peak foundation establishment. He nodded with a smile. From the looks of it, do you think she'll break through to the golden core stage here? Impossible. He rejected the idea without even thinking about it. Hearing this, Xiao Han was dissatisfied. Why is it impossible? I think it's very possible. Entering the golden core stage is not the same as entering the foundation establishment stage. Who would dare to casually break through to the golden core stage if they don't have complete confidence? If something goes wrong, they might fail to form their golden core. If it's light, their cultivation will be severely damaged. If it's heavy, they might die. Ouyang Xiu said coldly. It hasn't even been a year since he entered the foundation establishment stage. How can he break through to the golden core stage? Furthermore, foundation establishment requires foundation establishment pills. Breaking through to the golden core stage requires even more pills or medicines. Whether it's strength or medicines, he can't lack either. Xiao Han rubbed his nose and didn't say anything. Because of this, he saw the color of the sky suddenly change. Even though it was evening, the speed at which the sky darkened was too fast. Also, the spiritual aura that was rushing into the spirit gathering formation seemed to be directly sucked in. Even the originally withered leaves on the trees and weeds quickly withered at this moment, and the tree's vitality was completely gone. Hiss. He sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking at the huge change in the surroundings, he broke out in a cold sweat. This is troublesome, troublesome. She can't be thinking of sucking in all the spiritual aura here, right? Nieteng frowned slightly. Looking at the changes in the sky and the rotation of the surrounding spiritual aura, his eyes flashed and he walked forward. Fengjiu, who was in the spirit gathering array, was flushed red. The surrounding spirit qi rushed into her body, accompanied by traces of green vitality. Part of the spirit qi was absorbed by the green lotus, while the rest of the green vitality was absorbed by the green lotus. The green lotus, which was originally sitting quietly in her dantian, began to rotate, greedily absorbing the spirit qi that was rushing into her body. Her veins were bulging, and spiritual power was gathering in her dantian. She could feel that the opportunity to advance in her body was about to break through. She opened her eyes, picked up the medicine and pills in front of her, and swallowed them together. She stopped running the technique and guided her spiritual power to break through the last threshold to the peak of the foundation establishment realm. Boom! In the sky, the surging clouds rolled like mushroom clouds above the spirit gathering array. Muffled sounds of thunder spread throughout this small world, shocking the students of the other academies to the point that they were dumbfounded. Heavenly, heavenly lightning. Oh my God! Why is there heavenly lightning in here? Damn it! Could it be that someone was advancing in here? And it even caused such a huge commotion. Do you want to destroy the secret territory of our 2-star academy? Chapter 9:15. Following the flow of air, they looked at the rolling clouds in the sky. Even though they could not fly on their swords, they quickly arrived outside the circle of the spirit gathering array. There, almost all the students from the various academies had already gathered. Each and every one of them was dumbstruck as they looked at the rolling clouds in the sky and listened to the muffled sound of thunder. Fuck! Which bastard is this? God damn it! How did he get inside? Damn it! The surrounding trees have all withered. Boom! Just as everyone was cursing, the sky rumbled as a bolt of lightning struck down. The power of the lightning was so great that it made everyone break out in a cold sweat. Fuck! This is not foundation establishment. This is a golden core. Someone is forming their core inside. When these words came out, the surrounding people all sucked in a breath of cold air. Core formation. Among these students, there was actually a core formation cultivator. Almost immediately, everyone's gaze turned towards the students from the 2-Star Academy. Their gaze seemed to ask, is it someone from your 2-Star Academy who is advancing? Is it someone from your 2-Star Academy who is forming their core inside? What are you looking at? Can't you see that the 10 of us are here? A student unhappily roared. He angrily glared at the other students and said while clenching his teeth, let me know who it is, this young master will wear his skin. Chi. You are just a foundation establishment cultivator, do you think you can beat someone who is advancing to Golden Core? Xiao Yihan crossed his arms and sneered. That 2-Star Academy sneered, core formation. Ha 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 ha. Do you think that core formation is so easy? I think that this person will not be able to form his golden core. Maybe he will not be able to withstand the tempering of the heavenly thunder and fall. You have fallen, but she has not fallen. Xiao Yihan said, ignoring him. Instead, he paid attention to the movement of the clouds in the sky. Because of the fog, they couldn't see what was going on in the center of the formation. They could only faintly see the air currents flowing out from the inside. At the same time, 2 cries for help came from the formation. Help! Save me! Save us! As it turned out, the 2 students who were trapped inside had yet to come out. Originally, they thought that even if they were trapped inside, they would naturally be transported out when the time was up. Thus, there was no need to be anxious. However, when the first bolt of heavenly lightning struck down from the sky, the pressure and airflow that surged out from the heavenly lightning were all Jindan auras. It was not something that they could withstand. Therefore, the 2 of them started to panic and started to call for help. However, no one went in to save them because they were not confident that they could enter the formation and walk out. Moreover, the 2 of them were not anyone to them, so why would they take such a risk? Help! Help! Ah! The cry for help was accompanied by a cry of agony. It was as if the person had been injured by the airflow or attacked by the pressure. In any case, the students outside couldn't see, so they couldn't help. Boom! The second bolt of heavenly lightning struck, and the ground shook. As the heavenly lightning struck, the flow of spiritual energy and life force continued to flow towards the center. The 2 people trapped in the formation screamed again and again. Chapter 9:16. The power of the second bolt of lightning was even greater than the first. Almost at the same time that the air-flow and pressure of the second bolt of lightning spread out, the 2 miserable students trapped in the formation had already fainted from their injuries. At this moment, everyone outside held their breaths and stared at the rolling clouds in the sky, guessing if the third bolt of lightning would strike. If the third bolt of lightning struck, then, thinking of this, everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Could there really be a golden core cultivator among them? The most despicable thing was that they still didn't know which academy this student was from. They didn't know who the person inside was. However, this time, the third bolt of lightning didn't strike after a while. The people outside had been waiting and watching with bated breaths. As the sky gradually darkened and night fell, no one left. No one forgot to fight for other people's spirit stones. They all stared at the sky, wanting to know if the bastard inside could successfully form his core. This wait lasted from night until dawn. Not only did the people outside feel uncomfortable, even Fengjiu, who was inside the spirit-gathering formation, felt uncomfortable. Her meridians felt as if they were about to break due to the frantically surging spirit force. She could even hear cracking sounds coming from her meridians and bones. This feeling made her feel as if she was close to death. It was as if she couldn't cross this hurdle, she would die. But at this time, no medicine or pills could help her. The only thing that could help her was to get through this hurdle. Only by getting through this hurdle could she step into another realm. She gritted her teeth and channeled all of her power into her body. The aura of her spiritual power instantly rose to a height of more than 10 meters. At that moment, the aura of her spiritual power turned into flames. The raging flames surrounded her body and burned her clothes to ashes in an instant. Naked, she sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit-gathering array. Her eyes were tightly shut, and a green lotus was faintly visible between her eyebrows. Bits of green light mixed with bits of golden light danced, and the green lotus seemed to be about to bloom, faintly discernible. Her ink-black hair fluttered in the flames in the airflow. The raging flames seemed to be tempering her body, making whistling sounds. It was also at this moment that a rumbling sound came from the sky. A bolt of heavenly lightning that was several times more powerful than the previous 2 bolts of heavenly lightning struck down from the sky. Boom! In an instant it was as if an earthquake had struck the entire sacred ground. The students standing outside the spirit-gathering array only felt the ground shake violently, and they couldn't even stand still. The sudden upheaval made them dizzy, and they fell to the ground one after another, unable to stand up. Hiss! Look! Someone sucked in a breath of cold air, only to feel that the entire air was distorting. Looking around, the trees and weeds were withering one after another, and even in the distance, they were withering at a visible speed. The entire green holy land of the mystic realm seemed to have been drained of vitality in an instant, turning into a withered forest. Chapter 9:17. What is going on here? The dean of the 2-Star Academy was startled for a moment, and ordered, "Investigate. See what is going on here." "I'll immediately investigate." A mentor of the 2-Star Academy replied, but unexpectedly, before he could go outside, he saw 2 old men flying in the air. Their speed was very fast, almost in the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the dean. When the dean of the 2-Star Academy saw the 2 of them, he could not help but be surprised. "Why are the 2 elders here? Something happened in the sacred land of the secret realm, and you are still here asking why are you here?" The 2 elders said with a sullen face, glancing at the teachers of the various academies. They flicked their sleeves, and turned towards the direction of the transmission array. Hearing the words of the 2 people, not only the people of the 2-Star Academy were surprised, even the people of the other academies were also surprised, and quickly followed them towards the direction of the transmission array. The secret realm was the sacred land of cultivation. How could something happen? If something happened, then what was the matter? Even the 2 elders of the 2-Star Academy were alarmed. At the same time, in the secret realm, the people outside the spirit-gathering array were all stunned. One by one, they looked foolishly at the lifeless trees around them. Their mouths were wide open, but they did not know what to say. After the 3 bolts of heavenly lightning, the clouds in the sky finally dispersed, and the blue sky and white clouds were restored. If it wasn't for the forest below that looked like a ghost forest, the air without any aura of spiritual energy, and the lifeless trees, they really would have thought that the previous scene was just an illusion. However, in the middle of the spirit-gathering array, Fengjiu lightly exhaled, and the spiritual power in his body returned to his dantian, and at this time, his dantian had successfully formed a core. What made her pleasantly surprised was that the blue lotus finally slightly bloomed, and a petal bloomed, although it was only a petal, but it made her very happy. Seeing that her clothes were burned by the flames, immediately, she quickly took out another set of clothes from her space and put it on. After putting on the clothes, she lightly exhaled, and felt that her whole body was different. She had just entered the golden core stage, although she had not reached the peak of the golden core stage, but her strength had advanced from the early golden core stage to the intermediate golden core stage, which was beyond her expectations. Also, with so much spiritual power nourishing and assisting her, and with the help of medicines and pills, if she could not advance, then it would be too wrong. I entered the Jindan stage in less than a year. I think the Yuanying stage won't be too far away from me. She was in a good mood as she spoke. She stretched her back and rubbed her shoulders. She thought about how half a month had passed, and she had only managed to snatch 10 spirit stones. That was too little, so she decided to go out and take a look. Thus, she walked out briskly. However, when she took her first step, she noticed that the spirit stone under her feet was dusty. It was as if the spirit stone's aura had been squeezed dry. Although it wasn't completely exhausted, it looked like it was almost done. The surrounding spiritual energy seems to have decreased quite a bit. She muttered softly and looked around. Because of the fog, she couldn't see the outside, but she could feel that the spiritual energy in the air wasn't reduced by a lot like she said. Instead, it was almost completely absorbed by her. Chapter 9:18. While she was thinking, she walked outside, passing through one array formation after another. When she arrived at the outermost array formation, she saw a figure covered in blood lying on the ground, unconscious. She could not help but be surprised, and stepped forward to call out. "Hello." Seeing that there was no movement, she squatted down to check his pulse. Seeing that he had fainted, she intended to step over him and leave. However, when she caught a glimpse of the spirit stone bag on the student's waist, she could not help but laugh. "Okay. I'll be a good person." With a flick of her hand, she took the bag of spirit stones and stored it in her space. Then, she lifted the unconscious student up, intending to carry him out. Unexpectedly, after walking for a while, she met another student who was also unconscious and had wounds all over his body. "Huh. There's another one." She raised her eyebrows, and after calling out to him, she saw that he did not wake up. So she directly took his spirit stone bag, and with one hand dragging the other person, she directly went out. Sha sha, sha sha sha. This was the sound that the students outside the spirit gathering array heard. It seemed that something was rubbing against the ground, making a rustling sound. Listening to the rustling sound, they could not help but feel fear in their hearts. Was that person coming out? Was the person inside really one of their students? But how come they did not hear any footsteps? Instead, it was that rustling sound. Until they saw Feng 9, who was dressed in white, walking out with two people in her hands, they were all dumbfounded. "Huh. They're all here." Outside the array formation, she saw the students standing not far away. She was somewhat surprised, but smiled and greeted them. Especially when she saw Ouyang Xiu and Xiaoyihan standing not far away, she raised a big smile on her face. "You two are also here." As she spoke, she loosened her grip on the two people she was dragging, causing them to fall to the ground with a loud thud. Seeing the two unconscious students covered in wounds caused by sharp blades, the crowd couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Pairs of eyes stared intently at the youth who was walking towards them with a smile on his face. 6-Star Academy. He was actually a student of a 6-Star Academy. This person was actually at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, and now he was directly promoted to a golden core stage cultivator. This simply made them speechless. Before the other party came out, they thought that when he came out, they would definitely give him a good beating. But when he came out, each and every one of them was dumbfounded. His cultivation was at the golden core stage, and he was completely unscathed. He was even dragging two unconscious students in his hands, and he walked out of the spirit gathering array so calmly and casually. He even smiled and greeted them. What a fucking greeting. Right now, they were only thinking that if they could beat him, they would definitely beat him up. Ouyang Xiu stared at Fengjiu as if he was looking at a ghost. When he saw Fengjiu walking over, he couldn't help but stare at him. He looked at him from top to bottom twice and found that he was really different. Even his aura was different. Did he really enter the golden core realm and become a golden core cultivator? He still wanted to surpass him. Now that he saw him enter the hidden territory and advance from the foundation building stage to the core formation stage, other than feeling that it was unbelievable, the sullen feeling in his heart made him speechless. Ting looked at her smiling face, and his heart couldn't help but relax. He didn't expect her to really become a Jidan cultivator. In this way, her strength was above his. Chapter 9:19. While speaking, he gestured to her to look at the withered trees around them, with a look of interest on his face. How did you advance in the end? You actually absorbed all the spiritual chi here, and even the vitality of this place was cut off by you. Tsk, this movement is really not ordinary. Fengjiu at this time also noticed the trees around them. When she saw those withered trees, she could not help but be dumbfounded. How could this be? I just cultivated, how could these trees become like this? She was somewhat speechless, her heart was getting more and more empty. This area was originally green, but now, not even a single green leaf could be seen, and the trees were all withered. The spiritual chi in the air was scarce. She did not say anything about it, but how could the vitality of these trees be reduced? How is it? Didn't I say that you are in trouble? This is the secret territory of a 2-star academy, a holy land for cultivation. To cause such a disturbance, I'm afraid. Alas! He shook his head and sighed. He felt that this matter would not be so easy to solve. After all, this was the place of a 2-star academy. If they were students of a 2-star academy, then it would be fine, but unfortunately they were students of a 6-star academy. Anyone who saw their own place destroyed like this would definitely jump up in anger. This, I also. She was terrified in her heart, but before she could finish her words, she saw more than a dozen figures appear in front of everyone. Seeing more than a dozen figures, Fengjiu's scalp went numb. Hiss! What the hell is going on here? The dean of the 2-star academy looked at the withered trees around them, as well as the withered spiritual chi. He could not help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. He could not believe what he was seeing. In addition to the dean and vice-dean of the 2-star academy, there were also their 2 elders, as well as the vice-dean of each academy. Now, when everyone saw the situation inside, they were all stunned. They could not believe it. The spiritual chi in here, this. Looking at the scene inside, everyone was speechless. Even if they were from other academies, they knew the importance of this sacred cultivation ground. But now, the students of these academies had only been here for half a month, and there was not even the slightest bit of spiritual energy in this place. Moreover, even the vitality of the trees here was gone. Such a scene was simply like a natural disaster, and the destruction was inconceivable. Only the vice-headmaster of the 6-star academy, Old Man Guan, after he came in and saw the scene, he immediately looked at the surrounding students of the 6-star academy. His eyes swept past several students, and when his eyes fell on Fengjiu, who had a guilty conscience, he could not help but take a deep breath, as a bad premonition arose in his heart. If there was anyone here who had the ability to cause destruction, it would definitely be Fengjiu. Especially when she looked a little apologetic and a little guilty at this time. When he saw this expression in front of him, he just wanted to shout to the heavens. Was it really her doing? What the hell was she doing in here? He actually squeezed the rich spiritual energy out of this place. Even the life force in this area was destroyed. If this was really her doing, then how could he explain it to the deans of the 2-star academy? Who is it? Who did it? Who the hell did it? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.